Hopefully you all are doing well. I'm getting there as far as my energy back. You can probably see in my face I'm still a little tired. Definitely not as tired as I was same time yesterday, and definitely not as tired as I probably was looking last night. But we're thankful and grateful for everybody being on with us. May the words of my mouth and the meditation of my heart be acceptable in your sight. He is our strength and our redeemer, and it's in his name, which is his authority, that we pray, praise, proclaim, project, and protect today's message. Amen. Once again, welcome everybody. We're thankful and grateful to have everybody with us. Peace be upon everyone. As always, as Pastor Kofi, Pastor Servant of Christ, we are always changing lives one mind at a time, but being a voice to the voiceless and speaking the unspoken. And we're excited to be here in front of you again. Once again, as always, we give all honor and praise to the Most High. We give all praise to the Most High for my wife, the Honorable Amma, who lives a life able to be honored. You can check her out on TikTok, YouTube, her website, and Pinterest at Bloom and Flourish. Not A-N-D, the letter N, Bloom and Flourish. She's a healer, herbalist, chemist, and biologist by degree. And she is in the practice of making sure that your health is her practice, is her meditation, is her goal. And it's her business. So she's in the business of making sure that your health is great business for yourself, as well as for the diaspora, as well as for you personally. So if you'd like to find out more information about that, let us know. Otherwise, thank you to everybody, Lottie Dottie and everybody, ministerial staff, SOC, moderators, people part of the diaspora, human beings, people who agree, who disagree. If it's your first time, if this is one time of many, whatever the case is, we're thankful and grateful to have you on. We appreciate you. Hello to Minister Tamara. Hello to Anubis. Hello to Clarissa. Hello to Aphrodisiac out there. Hello to Just Banks. Is it Wondering Jer? All right. Welcome to you. Shalom. Kennel Ambrose. Is it Ambrose? How you doing? Daryl, how you doing? Luke, how you doing with this be part of the community? Luke Cage, is that based off the Marvel thing? Luke, how you doing? Sister Beverly, how you doing? Sister Sharice, how you doing? Ali, how you doing? Thank you, Oil Go. Appreciate it. All of you are loved as well. Loved, necessary, majestic, fearfully, wonderfully made. We're going to be the reason this system turned, or people who are in this system no longer have to be of it, right? How you doing, Nate? Trucker's wife, how you doing? If I didn't say so, I think I said hello to Ali, Miss Pierce, everybody, Lottie Dottie, and everybody. Hello, Shalom. How are you doing? So we're going to get back into Yam Vav, the sixth day, the sixth time today. We're thankful and grateful. And we're going to get back into this sixth Yam today. And we're going to, like we did yesterday, we're just going to kind of start right on it. We have a bunch of stuff that we've laid out already, ground rules, different parts. We talked about the 5 periods of time or the 5 Yams, right? Yam Aleph, Yam Bet, Yam Gemal, Yam Dalet, Yam He, leading up into Yam Vav. And we're going to continue where we left off. So we were talking about the creature and creation a lot yesterday to stop this part of things, right? And you say, here we go, SMH. Okay. I don't know what that is, but welcome to you. Loves you. Naya, how you doing? Thanks for being on, bro. Thanks for being with us again as usual. How you doing, Ms. Mac? All praise to the Most High. So basically, when we're talking about these things, we're making it a point to specifically speak to, we're coming from a cultural perspective, which a lot of people have a problem with, but that's why we made it a point. We made it a point to set the ground rules. If somebody wants to know what the ground rules are and know some of these things or whatever, all you have to do is simply, look up what we're talking about. And thank you to the moderators. I didn't even catch that until somebody just made mention of what the person said, I guess. But thank you to the moderators. We appreciate you. So when we're talking about this, we're coming from a cultural perspective. And so we talked about that creature versus creation piece a lot yesterday, because we have to make sure that people recognize that when we fell short, when Adam sinned, which we haven't even got to, right? We haven't even gotten to the Adam piece of the equation, which is looking at all of us at one point that were creation, right? Oh, amen. I got you, Minister Tamara. Right. I didn't even see what the comment was. So whatever it was, I just know somebody said something to do with my hair, I guess. So that's fine. But long story short, we have, what Yahweh has for us as a people, and we have the creation. And we talked about what happened when we sinned or fell into sin, or sin came upon us, got weaved into the DNA. How you doing, Brother Alton? We got to this place where now, since sin has been woven into the DNA, the fabric of the DNA, well, now the sin has to go through a place of, what is it that we're looking for? Since it's gone through the fabric of our DNA, now the sin has to go through a place where we are going to take time out to realize that it separates us from our normalcy, right? And so, as we talked about yesterday, a lot of us have not even lived outside of being a creature, which is just the what? Fruitful and multiply piece. And now a lot of us are not into replenishment and being able to subdue things. How you doing, Chris? Thanks for being on with us. How you doing, Henry? Let's be a part of the community as well, Chris. Appreciate it. So a lot of us are able to do the fruitful and multiply thing. Fruitful and multiply is kind of survival, right? Can you produce something that gives fruit to something else and gives birth to something else? Can you multiply it, right? Can you have children? Can you kind of make a little bit of money here or there? That's the basics, right? Can you be a creature? But we talked about that there's a difference between a creature and the son. We bounce back and forth between that and Romans chapter 8, verse 19, some other scriptures. And so I'm not going to beat that up, but that's something that's important for us to realize and recognize, right? If we're going to be a son or a child of the Most High, then you got to realize there's a difference between the creature and the son, right? A creature and the child, one who was created, but one who has not just been created, but has been adopted. And it doesn't mean that just because you're an Israelite means that you automatically get in either, because Romans 9:6, not all Israel is Israel. Not all Israel is going to follow what's necessary. So we're talking about specifically in Genesis chapter 1, or Barashit Aleph. And we're focusing on starting around, what is that, verse 22, I believe, where we start. So did we start at verse 20? Okay, I'm sorry, verse 24. I don't know what I was doing there. Verse 24, right? And we get to a place where we're talking about is how you doing, Lashandra. So we sat there, we read that, we saw that Yahweh talks about bringing forth the cattle. Then after that, he's going to start saying, well, let us bring forth man, right? So a cattle creature, that's all fine and well, but now he's going to do something specific called man, right? And he's going to create us inside of his own image. That's a very crucial point to make. He's going to create something that's inside of his own image and after his own likeness, right? He's going to create something that's inside of his own image and after it goes after what? His own likeness. That's really crucial, right? So it's inside the image after the likeness, right? You were not created. See, once again, because a lot of us, we're just saying, oh, we're human beings. So since we're human beings, we're children of the Most High. But it's important that we got that correctly, because that's not what it said. That's why we say, read your Bible, it'll bless you. It doesn't say that you were created to just be, you were created to just be what? Fruitful, multiply, right? Fruitful, multiply, replenish the earth towards subduing the earth, right? Not each other. And so it doesn't say what? It doesn't say that you were just made inside in the image and after the likeness, and let's just go past this. What does that mean? See, we just say in his image. So people say you look like him, right? But it doesn't just mean look like him inside the image. What is the image of Yahshua? See, the image, yes, it manifests into a physical look, but Yahweh, Yahshua, even at this point, right? Because we haven't got to him being manifested as a human being, but Yahshua, Yahweh, Yahshua, the Father, the Son, the Holy Ghost, they do not look like what we think they look like, because first things first, we have to realize that this is man. Now, once again, what does this word man mean? When you read that word man there, what does it mean? It's important that we grasp that, because we have a lot of different things that people are talking about, right? And they keep telling us about this thing. But when we talk about man, he said we're going to make man. What does that word mean? Right? The word man is really talking about what? Man is a spirit, right? So before he's made the human, right? We have to first deal with what? The man. We just hear man, and because we're into somebody else's culture, we automatically assume male or female, or nowadays, who knows what you would call it, right? But when you hear man, you start thinking human being, you start going into mankind even and all this stuff. No, man, first of all, man is a spirit. He made the cattle at the beginning of this period of time we're talking about, this day, this sixth day, right? He made the cattle already, right? But the cattle was not called man. He made the things that are going to be on the earth besides you, but he didn't, the thing that are going to creep upon the ground. Those things are there, but he didn't call them man. He said, we're going to let us make man. First things first, let us make spirit. Now, question. Now, here's another question for you, right? Let's do our Columbo thing. How you doing, Sister Miko? All right. Let's do our Columbo thing. Y'all ready? Let's do our Columbo thing. Let's put on our detective hats and just start asking questions. We got to ask ourselves, well, if he made man, right? And that, right? And he himself is a spirit, then is Yahweh, in a sense, is he man? Now, this is a convoluted answer, or not convoluted, but it's going to be a very leveled, puzzled answer. These pieces we have to put together a lot. But just in that one question, because Yahweh wants man to look like him. But question, is Yahweh man? Think about the question. Right? Think carefully with me. How you doing, Sister Cynthia? I see you, Seven Horns. Yeah. How you doing, Sister Tracy? Right? He says, let us make man. Right? But then it says later on, Yahweh is not a man that he should lie. But he says something that's crucial. He says, first, let us make man inside of our image and after our likeness. So man, right, is not the same as Yahweh, right? But man is a spirit, just like Yahweh is a spirit. Because even though Yahweh is not a man that he should lie, he is not the, right? Even though Elohim is not a man that he should lie, nor the son of man that he should confess. He doesn't have to confess like we do, because he doesn't have to confess to his own logic, because it is his own logic. If you know what the word confess means to have the same logic. Whenever he speaks, he's automatically confessing because he's speaking his own logic. Therefore, anybody else who speaks his logic has to confess what he says, right? That's actually what that means. But because we don't know what confession means, we get into these long drawn out things and all this other stuff, but we don't know what confession means. The reality is that confession means to speak the same logic. So to confess isn't talking about he has to confess his sins only. To confess is talking about the fact that he doesn't have to get with his own logic because he swears by himself. However, he's creating this version of a spirit called man. This is not a cherubim. This is not a seraphim. This is not a angel, even though some of us can be angels by messenger, but we're talking about spiritual angels. So this is not a spiritual angel. This is not Elohim. He says, I'm going to make something called man, and this particular spirit is going to be allowed to have power over the earth realm as long as he gets inside of a physical body, right? When he has access to a physical body, then I will breathe a soul into him, and he shall become a living soul. Spirit, man, body, flesh, and soul, psyche or psyche or psychology, all three in one. The way that I'm three in one, he will be like Elohim, right? He will be like me because I am a spirit. And they worship me, must worship me in spirit and in truth, but he shall not be the same as me. He will be man. Man is not the same as Elohim, yet Elohim and man are both spirits. Therefore, they get along in the spirit. And that's when you get along in the physical. Why? Because he formed what made you. He formed and made you in the physical. So guess what? He's formed and made you in the spirit as well. He formed man. We're going to get into that in Genesis 2, right? But he formed Adam, right? The same word, but Adam here is focusing on the spirit. It's not denying the flesh, but it's focusing on the spirit. Before we make man, he says, first, let's make the spirit. And then let's go ahead and put it together with the flesh. How you doing, Keith? How you doing, brother John? I told you, I don't know why, brother Jermaine. I don't know why it is. I see that name and I want to say every other letter J name except for Jermaine. I'm getting better though, right? Yeah. So he saw the spirit. It was always about the spirit. The spirit manifests. Why? Because he's a king over a kingdom, and kingdoms expand. And so kingdoms, like any of these other kingdoms, whether you like the kingdoms or not, these kingdoms expand. They take over. They colonize. They take place. But here's the deal. See, we focus on bad kingdoms and bad leaders, right? You said explain 1 Corinthians 15:45. This is Adam is the first man. What do you mean explain it? I'm not even talking about that right now, but explain it. I mean, what is I don't know exactly what you want me to do with that. Explain. Well, what's the context of it, what I'm talking about now? The fact that you don't like that I said that there's men besides Adam? Or that I said that there's a spirit? And even if that's the case, I think you just look at, okay. And even if that's the case, I guess just look at what Genesis 1 through chapter 1 verses 2 through Genesis chapter 1 verses chapter 2 and verse 3 talk about a generation, and then the rest of it talks about generations. Okay. Well, that's your belief system that you're going off of. But by the Shuts talks about generation, and it talks about generations. Right. And if your whole thing is to say that, the Most High was going to start things off with something that's against his word, which is, hey, I'm going to believe in, I'm going to tell you guys not to get with your brothers and sisters, right? But I'm going to start off with you guys having sex with your brothers and sisters. If that's your belief system, then, there's something that within itself, I believe, gets you more in a quandary than just simply looking at the word where it tells you that I'm separate, right? Like, once again, you have Elachamites and Yahavites. We've already set this, so I'm not going to go deep into this. You can look for the recordings yourself if you like, right? But we have Elachamites at Yahavites. So Elachamites believe that all they need to focus on was Genesis chapter 1 to Genesis chapter 2 and 3. Yahavites believe that you were supposed to focus on Genesis chapter 2, verse 4 to the end of Genesis chapter 2. Moses comes, right, later on, and he's led by the Spirit to start taking things that are already written and spoken about. And he says, you know what, rather than fighting and beefing, he said, you guys agree on this stuff anyways. We'll just put these as 1 and 2. So we'll put these in order. Everybody believes in what you're saying. Everybody believes that one happened first and the second happened second. Then that might be stuff that you never researched or you never heard. But so when you're looking at Genesis chapter 1 through Genesis chapter 2, verse 3, you keep seeing God in English, right? You keep seeing God because that was somebody saying, Alacham said, Alacham said, Alacham did, Alacham said, Alacham did this, Alacham said this, right? Then you get to Genesis chapter 2, verse 4, you start seeing in English, Lord God, because they're saying Yahweh Elohim did, Yahweh Elohim did, Yahweh Elohim did, because that was a different religiosity. So you're actually seeing both religions, so to speak, coming together and stop fighting against each other. Let's just go ahead and say both of y'all are right. One happened in a generation of the creation of the earth. And when Yahweh rested inside that which was created, there was a place that he rested even further in that was called Adam or Eden, and Adam was put in Eden. So it's kind of like when you have the whole George Washington piece. Is George Washington your first president? Technically, by the Constitution, he's the first president over the second Constitution of the United States of America, but he's not the first president, right? Like, we have no problem saying that. Well, you have Adam who's created, right? And Adam who was created, but you had the first Adam, and he said, let us make man inside our image and after our likeness, and the generation. And then he said, male and female made he them. But then he uses completely different language in Genesis chapter 2, verse 4 on. When you start reading it, he talks about the fact that, hey, you had this Adam, this version of him, right? And he's made outside of the garden. But then in the generations, I'm going to put him in the garden. And then I'm going to separate him, and I formed him, but then I made female. I formed him, but I built female, right? I made him but I designed the female differently. That's what it says about the second Adam that you're talking about. This first Adam, or this first man, right? It just says that he made them. He didn't form them, he made them. So even the language is different, right, from chapter to chapter. But nevertheless, like we'll get more into that. I know people are going to question it more. But at the end of the day, there's a difference between the generation and the generations. The Bible doesn't lie to us. It uses specific language. And if we're going to go to a place of being like, okay, so the Most High, who doesn't change, doesn't want these things to be changed, doesn't want belief system to be changed, he declares the thing and he wants it to be established. We're saying that he started with incest, but then said don't have incest anymore. The only way that you can even get out of that, if I were to even try to defend that, the only way you get out of that is to say that, well, he created everybody, but we were more perfect. And since we were more perfect, I guess we would have been able to be okay with incest and not have the consequences of incest. That's about it. And it doesn't really make sense, right? But that's about all you got. So I'm just saying, the more we look at it, the more we see it, it's easy for there to be there. But I appreciate it, though. We don't have to agree on that part. This is, once again, me presenting a culture and actually putting culture and law and certain things in place that we don't use. How you doing, Prince? It's like you're going to go ahead and say he's lawful and then not deal with the law. I mean, we can go ahead and do that. But if we're going to actually be about what it says, generations, one is made, one is formed, right? Male and female made he them out of this spirit, right? But then one spirit says he formed, and then he made him male, and then he took this one and made kept the one he formed, but then he made female, different type of thing. And we're going to talk about like all these different things. The fact that once Cain even kills Abel, then he leaves and he goes somewhere else to another place. It doesn't ever say like let's be clear about this. When Cain has a wife, when Cain goes and finds a wife to try and find something that will complete him, rather than first of all asking for forgiveness and just saying, okay, you know what, you'll forgive me. Yahweh is trying his best to forgive him, and he doesn't want to accept the forgiveness. And when he leaves to go and be like a vagabond, and he goes and starts his own community, which basically means like to be dead or to be separated. I think it's Nod, right? And he goes there. It says first he goes and gets a wife, and it doesn't say he takes his sister. It doesn't say he stayed where he lived. It says that he went and he got someone from somebody else, somewhere else, had a wife, and then went and created what we now call Nod. So, and there's a lot of stuff that's in there that it's just like somebody doesn't like what I'm saying. But all I'm saying is just do some simple research and think about it. I'm just representing culture. I'm just bringing something different into it. I'm showing you that there are words, even in English, that you can look at and be able to say, yeah, I can see that. Yeah, I can see, right? I can see that something is different. And how you doing, Sister Dawn, if I didn't say so already? Right. But anyways, getting back to what we're talking about, how you doing? Is it I don't know if I'm saying this correctly. Is it on good sita? I don't know if I'm saying it correctly, but how you doing? But yeah, so, and all these things that we're talking about, you got to see that there's what? That he made man. How you doing, Sister Bree? Right, that he made man. You said he said it took his sister in the lost books and the Apocrypha. Which book you talking about? Right? Because you got to be careful which one. We just say Apocrypha as if all books are actual Apocrypha, and if all books that are not every book that says lost means that it's lost. But if you're talking about Enoch, you got to be real careful with that version that you're using, and you got to be real careful because not all the chapters in Enoch are correct. Some are and some aren't. Can I answer your question? You can put in the Q&A box if I didn't answer it, but I'm trying my best to catch them as follows. So if I missed it, I missed it. If you'd like to re-put it, you can. I'm scrolling. I don't see one. Oh, you said, who were the people in the land of Nod? It says that he went and created the people in the land of Nod. So we don't know if anybody else went with him. It said that he went and made the city called the land of Nod. If we have a book that says something different, then that's either a bad translation or it's not correct. Right? But once again, we don't know the culture. And even when we're using it, what version are you using? Where did it come from? All these different things, right? Like, what is the spirit behind it? Man means spirit. So what is the spirit behind what you're saying? Who made it? Which version of the Bible are you talking about? Before we get into, is it an apocryphal type Bible or word? Do you know the difference between the Alexandrian Bible and the regular Bible, right? Regardless if it's apocryphal or not. Like, are you reading the Alexandrian doctrine? Are you using Balaam doctrine? Are you using Nicolaitan doctrine, right? You see what I'm saying? Like, we're using all types of stuff. Which one are we using? Well, first of all, that's a very interesting question. That's why I said, like, I keep wanting to go into do a series on Enoch, and I've been mentioning Enoch more and more, but I keep trying to tell people Enoch's a difficult book because Enoch was not written. It has great things in it, but there's some things that are off because Enoch was not written by people who had pure objectives. The book of Enoch was written specifically by people who thought that the world was going to end thousands of years ago. So they took different pieces of things that were real and also different things that maybe they shouldn't have used, and they put it together because they knew the world was going to end. The world didn't end though, so a lot of the stuff in there is not correct. However, they did use some things that are correct to be able to create the book of Enoch. So the book of Enoch is actually a very difficult book to get inside of, to think about, right? You said, how can one trust the Bible if it's been rewritten? That's why we tell people, you got to know the original. You got to go know the culture. You have to know where it comes from. You have to know about the shots. First of all, when we're talking about Genesis, once again, some of you guys already know this, so forgive me for being super repetitive. And I'm going to have to cut this short because we still got to go into what the actual focus is today. But by the shots, for example, how many people know by the shots is the first word of the Bible? We got to start there. You know, like we keep talking about all this stuff. Before you talk about the version, before you talk about what you want, before you talk about what it is that you need to happen and all this stuff, first things first, do you know the culture? Can you tell me what the Aleph Bet is? Can you tell me Aleph Bet, Gimel, Dalet, Hey, Vav, Zion, et cetera, et cetera? Why? Because you need to be able to read it for yourself. A lot of us cannot even read it for ourselves. Do you know what it is when we're talking about the sixth day? We say Yam Vav, right? Yam Vav literally means the place where it's nailed in place and it's finished. Badashat literally means the son who comes out the right family, who's one with the Father, will become our head by being destroyed, being led by the Holy Spirit to the cross. That's the first word of the Bible, which means that you cannot believe in the Bible all the way if you don't even know what the first word says. If the first word says all that I just said, it literally means that what Yahshua did on the cross, he just finished what was there. That's why John chapter 1 verse 1 starts off with in beginning as well, because it's saying the same word, badashat. So before we get into all these things, it's hard for me to have a conversation culturally with people who don't know about the culture of what was written. Right? Guaranteed, a lot of people who are arguing with me right now about this and all this stuff don't even know the first word. And so we're trying to have a conversation to introduce some things to you past the first word, but you're arguing about things that are beneath the first word. Right? If the first word is up top, everything else is beneath it. How do you understand what you're talking about if you don't stand under the first word? Right. So we're having a little bit of difficulty, but I'm trying to tell you, I'm telling you words, I'm giving you keywords and key phrases you can study. And what's going to happen is people are going to be so into, oh, this is what I feel, this is what I've been taught. Well, what have you been taught is wrong? Because if you don't know about a shot, right, and you still saying Genesis, if you don't know Alacham and you still saying God, not knowing that God is a Germanic deity, if you're telling me, still telling me about a firmament and you don't know firmament is a Greek God and you need to be talking about Achaia, right? If you're trying to tell me about what happened in comparing Genesis 1 and Genesis 2 together, and you don't even know that the generation is from the Elohimites and the generations is focused on about the Yahwehs. If you're not even in that place yet, how are we having discussion? We're not having discussion. I'm trying to tell you something that's contextually factual, and you're telling me something that's based off of an emotional point of view that comes from a belief system that somebody told you, and that person didn't even know the culture, which should inform their beliefs, which should inform your emotions, which informs how you feel when you hear it, which informs the mood that you're in when you start trying to pelt me with all these different things or whatever. The reality, though, is that you don't have the right effort or energy to put into it, and therefore your habits have been off for a long time, which means you started a new culture based off of bad habits, off of bad information, off of a bad mindset, off of a lack of who you really are, right? When Yahweh says that he sent Yahshua said that he came that you might have life and more abundantly. It's time for you to have more than just something that doesn't make sense or something that doesn't even fit into the culture. You said LOL, and you were taught he ain't die on the cross, but obviously that was wrong given the first word. There you go. See what I'm saying? Like, so I'm not saying just because I'm an Israelite, because I'm black, I'm better. Like, there's Israelites out there spitting that there is no Yahshua. There's Israelites out there spitting that Yahshua died, but he didn't die on the cross. But you can't believe that he didn't die on the cross if you know the first word. Right? We're trying to have a conversation about stuff where people are, we can talk about whatever version and all these things or whatever. If you don't know the culture, what's going on? You said y'all should, yeah, here we go again. Y'all should study definitions and tablets, not Bibles from 8,000 years old or whatever. Like, once again, I'm in etymology right now, right? And the things that you're talking about of ancient times or whatever, we have a lie that says that like the Bible or the Israelites only had a language that started with Moses. That's not true. Moses started writing down what we now hold as canon, but he's writing down things that are written and exist, and we have actual evidence of that go back before him, right? But once again, we're talking about a different thing culturally. People are trying their best to attack a culture, and that's what's supposed to be there, right? Balaam doctrine is mentioned, and things that attack the culture. You got to look for the culture. Culture is first. Why do you think you're scattered? Because they attack your culture. Why do you think that they're told that you shouldn't look like yourself? Because they attack your culture. Why do you have people that are going into ad hominem mode against me rather than just having a conversation? Culture. When you represent where you come from, and you should be what? Rejoice and be exceeding glad when that happens. Because he did the same thing to people that came before. You said you saw them mention Yeshua last night on the show Evil, and let's just say it was wild. Yeah. They've even started coming on and telling you stuff. They've been using Yeshua in movies longer than they have in churches. Think about that. You said someone asked when they said he died on the tree. What does that mean? What is a cross made out of? You see what I'm saying? Like, we're having stuff where people are so against just trying to, you got to be wrong. You got to be wrong. Is a cross made out of a tree? And by the way, that's not just talking about only what happened to Yashua, but that's talking about what happened to a whole bunch of people. Anybody who's died from a tree is the curse of somebody. If you hang somebody, matter of fact, David's son was hung on the tree, right? He was cursed. Oh, now it's tree trunk. Now we're changing it. Okay. Well, either way, what is a cross made out of? Like I said, we're gonna have people that are going to argue and push, right? But the cross was made out of a tree, and we use cross because it's tav. Tav. If you know the language, you already know what you're talking about. Badashat is talking about 6 characters out of 22. That's one that last character in tav of Badashat is also the last character of tav in the Aleph Bet, right? Tav means the place that it's finished. It means the place where it's marked. It also means, it also is shaped like a cross. It's in the first word. It's showing you. That's why the pictographs. People are trying to go into phonetic sounds and stuff, but you can't talk about phonetic sounds so you comprehend the phonetic picture, right? We're talking about, homiletics. It's written down in front of you, right? It's written down in front of you. So we can say whatever it is, right? But okay, fine. If you were going to make a cross, would you make it out of a tree branch or would you make it out of a tree trunk? Come on. Like we're arguing about stuff, but if we get it right culturally, it's already telling you what it is from beginning, in beginning. But if he said it in the beginning, if he said it there, then that's what it is. He starts at the end from the beginning. That's what Yahweh does. But we're having discussion about it because of what? How you doing, Michael? We're having discussion about it because people are not aware of culture. So we're taking somebody else's culture, we're taking somebody else's mindset, we're trying to apply it. But that's why going back to Genesis 1:26 now, if I may, and I'm going to stay here for a little bit because that's what I'm called to do today. So I'm going to be obedient to that. And going back to Genesis 1:26, first things first, he made man, he made a spirit. The mindset. What does spirit even mean in the way that we like to talk about it today? Pneumatical thought. What is pneuma? P-N-E-U-M-A. What does that mean? Pneuma. Pneuma literally means what? It means stoic thought that marries the spirit, the soul, and the body together. If you're talking about ravak or ruach, what is that talking about? The thing that should be our head, our way of thinking, or the one who's over us and he thinks, but head, right? Vav, the place it's finished, right? And really, we would put that kaf on there, being in his hands. But really, you could even say, we'll leave it there. We'll leave it there, right? Keep it simple. So we're talking about something that's marrying the body, the soul, and the spirit together. That's a head, that's somebody that's over us as our head. There's a thought process that we understand, we stand under, that keeps us in place. But the argument is not coming from proper understanding or a proper standard. And your standard is not Yahweh's standard. Therefore, your standard cannot be my standard if your argument is against what he wrote in his word. But if you don't know what he wrote, and how to even speak what he speaks, then we have a problem. Right? We have a problem. Yeah, the spirit is the mind, but the mind is different than the brain. So we're still talking about something different than just how you think physically, right? We're talking about something about the spirit. The mind and the brain are by definition two different things, right? Like you have more than one brain, but you only have one mind. You have this brain, you have this brain, bare minimum. Some people would say you have this brain too, right? Some people would say for men that we think too much with another brain, but there's only one mind. You have one mind. Now you can connect that mind, your will in that mind, to the one who minds everything, or you can connect it to whatever you want. You can disconnect it from whatever you want. But the first thing that he made, once again, was man. He wasn't dealing with what we try to turn him into. We're trying to take something that should be practical and make it so spiritual that it's become mystical, not even realize that the spiritual is practical and we should let certain things just remain mystical, right? At the end of the day, you have one mind. Your brain and your mind are not the same. Definitively so. And if somebody wants to look up for the one definition or the definition that's going to speak against it, that's fine. Once again, I'm not coming from everybody's culture. First things first, he said, I came to create a man. Let us make man. I made the whole earth so that I could say, let us. Now, who is us? To make it live a little more. Who is us? Let us make man. Who was he talking to? Because you weren't around. Was he talking to the animals who didn't have the ability to replenish or subdue? Right? We're coming with a wrong mindset. And you can't use poor faulty measuring rod to get the correct measurement. Yeah. So who did he say? Let us. Because you're made inside of his image and after his likeness. So who is us? See what I'm saying? Right? And now, right, the Father is talking to the Son and the Holy Ghost. Now the Father is the source, who's the king. He's the source. So in him is the source, right? Then he's going to make the Son. The Son is not only going to just be at his right hand, but also is going to come and be physical. So the Son represents the physical part. Holy Spirit is going to be the go-between in between the Son and the Father, right? Which we have called a soul. You have everything set up. And he says, let us make man exactly like that. Can I say that again? Just for the people in the back, for the people that will argue the culture, you have the Father who's speaking to the Son and the Holy Spirit and said, let us make man inside of our image and after our likeness. Let's have them conform to our spirit, right? Conform to our likeness, conform to the energy that we have, conform to the things that we do. So he's going to make you like him. You're not going to be him because you're not going to be Elohim, but you're going to be like him. You're going to be man. You're going to be a spirit. Therefore, you'll be able to worship him. Worship meaning extreme respect. You'll be able to extremely respect him and be able to do things the way he does so that you can have the extreme respect he's going to give you to allow you to be able to govern underneath his ultimate authority. You will have governance over the earth. And so in order for this two-way thing to work, and worship to happen on his end, that he might be able to respect you on your end, he says, I've got to make it to where we can all be one. So how can we be like each other? How can they be like me? Right? How can they be like me in my likeness, after my likeness? How can they be like me inside of our image? Well, I'm Father. I've got a Son that's going to become physically manifest, Badashatz, right? Badashatz means I have a Son that's going to come down here, right? That's why you got to know the first word. The Son is going to come down and he's going to be manifest and he's going to be amongst us. John chapter 1, verse 14, that he's going to become flesh and dwell amongst us and live with us, live like us, live amongst us. So I have the Father, I have the Son who's going to come down here, and then I've got the Holy Spirit that's going to go between. How can I do something similar to that? Okay, I'm going to put inside of them a spirit. That man makes them a spirit, something that's connected to the source and something that's beyond what they're going to see. Then I'm going to from the dust of the ground form something, right? That's actually going into Adam. This first one, just he's going to make it. But either way, from the dust of the ground, we're going to have something that's going to be created that the spirit can go inside of. But then even when you fast forward into how Adam, right? This Adam, we're talking about how he's made. When you fast forward into that Adam, how he's made, what does it say? It says that a breath had to be breathed inside him. Now, when you know culture, you know that word breath, it comes with this character called Hey. Thank you, Slanda, for the love. Appreciate it. It comes with this character called Hey. Now, what does Hey mean? Hey means Holy Spirit. See it, so showing you the representation, but it also means breath, which means that what the Holy Spirit said, that you became a living soul. So Che is talking about Holy Spirit, right? It also means breath. It also means soul, by the way, right? And so you have her in there in Elohim, in between the Son, who's physical, the Father, who's spiritual, all three becoming one, right? But you have you, who as a source, the spirit, the man, you have a body, the physical, and then you have what inside of you? You have a soul, a psyche, a psychology that connects the two, and it had to be breathed into you by the one that you're connected to, so you could be inside his image and after his likeness. It is his breath that and the soul and your soul that allows your spirit and your flesh to be connected. You don't have any kind of mindset of what's happening on earth if you don't have any connection to the earth, and you don't have any connection to the physical. If you don't have a soul, you wouldn't have had that connection point, whether you want to call it your your pineal gland, your eye of Horus, all these things you want to go to, whatever connection point, you got to realize you got to go to the one that created that breathed into you. That's what it's saying. But we're arguing about things without even thinking that through. You hear what I'm saying? We're having conversation without thinking that through at all. We're not having anybody talk about, well, yeah, we got to be 3 and 1, and we're 3 and 1, right? Matter of fact, if you want to get technical, it doesn't even talk about being 3 and 1 in Genesis chapter 1, does it? It tells you that in Genesis chapter 2, because there's a difference between creature and and son. We just talked about that yesterday, because there's a difference. I know y'all don't want to hear that, but it doesn't mention that in Genesis 1. But you ain't from, at least not completely, you ain't from Genesis 1. Not in your current state. Why? Because you're in sin. This is why we explained this yesterday. We're trying to have a sinful argument about something that we're not, because many people are only fruitful and multiplying, and some of us ain't even doing that. But a lot of us don't even step into replenishment and subduing. You hear that? Yeah, you could say that. Original. Yeah, you could say that. Right? Like you're where you start in perfection. When you are perfection or getting close to it or perfecting, where your start is not just fruitful multiply, it also includes replenishment of the earth and subduing it. We talked about what those mean yesterday. So now we go back to Genesis 1:26. Let us make man. Thank you, Sister Cynthia. Let us make man inside of our image and after our likeness. Let us make this spirit. This starts with the spirit. Human means what? Humus man. Humus, dirt body, man, spirit inside. Humus man, human. Let us make what? The spirit. Let us put it in what? A dirt body. We made the earth. The earth came up on the third period of time, came out of the water from the second period of time, came out of something without form and needed to be enlightened the first period of time. So, okay, we made man out of the earth, out of the stuff. That's why man has seed in him, because herb yielding seed was made in the earth. So guess what? Man had to be formed. And when he was formed and when he was made, when he was created, he had to have seed in him, just like the earth did. And he had to have a masculine and feminine, because the earth is what holds the seed. So the earth is the feminine. That's why they all even try to call it Mother Earth, right? Because the earth has the seed in it. I mean, the earth is what causes it to grow, but the seed is what's going to be the sperm, the zara. So it got to have both in it at the same time. But that's just the physical manifestation. But first, let's make the spiritual manifestation. The spirit is what's supposed to look like us all the way. Because if it was, every man would look exactly like Yahweh, right? He doesn't have a physical appearance. Yahshua does. Yahweh doesn't. And even with Yahshua's physical appearance, the Bible has been very careful to make sure that it keeps you away from even being able to present what he looks like. So even when we have people look, I present every once in a while a picture of what Yahshua could have looked like to help people who think that Yahshua has to be a white Jesus. I try to present that from time to time to help people out in their mindset, but don't get it twisted. Yahshua is we are not supposed to try and worship him, carve him out, tell you exactly what he looked like, all these different things or whatever. We know, what tribe he's part of. We know what color he would have been, but it's not that important, nor is it something we're supposed to try and make sure that we know exactly what he looked like. You know why? Because we're not supposed to. That's not a concern of us, because your concern is not to look like him. Your concern in the physical, your concern is to be inside of his image and after his likeness in the spirit. May I say that again because I was tripping over my words? Right? Our goal is not to say what Yashua looked like physically as much as it is what? Matter of fact, it's not even our goal at all. All right. Our goal is to do what? Is to make sure that we comprehend that we are supposed to be spiritually, right? Made inside of his image and after his likeness. That is perfection, right? Because you're going to get a new body, a glorified body, and that glorified body is not going to be a puzzle piece thing or just a copy of either. You're going to have a new body, which means that this body that you're in, it don't look like it. And this body that you have now, it don't even look like what your new body's going to look like. Because when Yahshua came back, he himself didn't even look like his first representation of his physical body. And when you read, right, like it tells you that the apostles didn't know who he was and they talked to him, had no clue who he was. It tells you that the women thought that he was the person who was the groundskeeper, and they were telling him like, hey, whatever you did with the body, please let us know, like, don't keep it from us. They were trying to strike a deal with him, not knowing that they were striking a deal to find him. The goal is not to make sure that you physically look like Yahshua. The goal is to make sure that what? First things first, do you look like him in the spirit? Once again, that's why confession is important. What does the word confession mean? The word confession means to have the same logic. How you doing, Keith? And how you doing, Sister Sheba, if I didn't say so already? Having his characteristics, his character. There you go. Character protects, just like law protects. You said maybe we know what he didn't look like. Mm-hmm. So to the one that said we don't study, y'all need definitions and have no understanding. Yeah, you got people will say that that's fine. They can go ahead and say whatever they want about study habits, right? Like, I've been doing this too long in life to worry about that part, right? But what I'm trying to tell you is that, like, we're focusing on the wrong thing. You're telling me about, oh, I don't like this part, or oh, somebody said this, or it has to be a tree trunk, and therefore since it says tree trunk, it's a weird thing. It's like when people don't even recognize when you say the tree of knowledge of good and evil. First of all, the word good didn't even exist then, and because good and God are like a deity made up later on. But even when you get past that, it's not even a tree. We don't know exactly what kind of plant it was. It could have been a bush. It could have been anything that produces fruit. Who knows? They could have been talking about, a technicality, but you could have been talking about a root, as far as we know, right? Because the root, basically is coming out of seed anyways. But you could say a root doesn't produce seed, so I guess maybe not a root. But it's talking about anything that produces seed, and it says just vegetation. We don't know what if it was a tree or not. So for you to say a tree means that it has to be, that's what he was on or whatever, like, you got to look at how the Romans were doing and how the Israelites were doing. You think that the Romans and the Israelites at that time, even though they were putting everybody on a cross and crucifying them, you think that all of a sudden they came to him and they said, okay, we're not going to do. And by the way, when was Yahshua killed? He was killed during what people call communion now, or try to call Ishtar, but it wasn't Ishtar, right? It was during Pasach or Passover. Right. And so thank you for the compliment. And so when you talk about Passover, right? Passover, they had a specific thing that was part of the ceremony, right? Which was that every year they could release a prisoner. They had two prisoners that they would look at. One would be the sacrificial lamb, and one would be the scapegoat. The scapegoat was the one that you allowed to go free, even though he deserved death. You would allow him, because they did this they also did this on their Day of Atonement. Right, which is going to be part of the 8th day when we get together in Detroit. They would have a Day of Atonement. And during the Day of Atonement, they would meet up on that 8th day, correct? On the Day of Atonement, they would meet up on the 8th day. Correct? So on the Day of Atonement, we would meet up on the 8th day. And on the 8th day, the priest of all Yahshua, of all Israel, will walk in there, and he would do a sacrifice on behalf of Israel. He had two goats. One was the goat that was going to be sacrificed. One was the goat that would be let go, right? And they would let go of this goat. They would tie like a red ribbon around the goat that they decided needed to be let go, or it didn't necessarily have to be red, but usually it was going to be like scarlet red, something like that, to represent blood. They would tie it around that goat. And so they wouldn't sacrifice that goat. They would sacrifice the other one, and they would let the other goat, the baby goat, right? They would let it go into the wilderness. Now, because that goat was not only a baby, but it also was, tame. So that goat had never been out in the wild. Parents had never been out in the wild, but they were going to let it go to show that that goat was going to die off without something to protect it. Israel, right, represented Yahweh's, place that needed to be sealed. And so anything that wasn't inside of Yashta, right, therefore really inside the Most High, was going to be sent outside, and by itself, without the Most High to govern it and guide it and protect it, it would die, right? So you would allow that person to live, and then you would just throw them out of Israel, right? But then the other person was the sacrificial goat, or sometimes even would be a sacrificial lamb, and that was what would happen with the person, right? So we're having like a weird discussion here where we're talking about these things because they did this every year, and when the Israelites are under Roman authority at this point, so they can't kill off these people, right, without doing it under Roman authority. How are the Romans killing people at that time? You said that was an episode, right? But I'm just trying to tell people, right? Like even when people talk about the cursed tree or the tree trunk, how are the Romans killing people at that time? They were in the land of their captivity, just like you. If you felt like somebody was guilty, could you just kill them in the middle of the street and not be messed over? No, right? You would have to make sure that you put them in prison, all right? And then you would have to show up and speak on behalf of your family when they give a chance for the family to speak. And then they might, depending on what town you're in, they might decide to put that person on death row because you're not in control, right? And as much as I love being Israelite, we must also admit at that time, we were not under control. You said they sent them to lions. I guess you could say Israelites could be sent to lions if they were enslaved and stuff like that. Sure, but we're not in that time yet. What you're talking about, we're not even in that time yet. Not when Yashva is there now. Is it possible that Israelites were sent? Yeah, sure. But we're talking about that particular time, that particular night, that particular night when they had a custom that goes back to the Day of Atonement, and the Day of Atonement we're supposed to still keep, by the way, not trying to kill folk. Right, but we're supposed to still keep at the Day of Atonement and give Yah praise on said day, right, or said date, if you will. And what were they doing on the Day of Atonement? They did this every year, right? So when we have people talking about it and even saying these things, it's like you're not even willing to look. All right, when Romans nailed people to trees, how did they do it? And that's all I'm going to say, right? You can fight it all you want. But with a Roman, right, which a lot of these Israelites were considered to be either Roman, Paul was part Roman. Paul had dual citizenship. Y'all know that, right? Before he started saying, I'm going to be about Yashva's will, when he was anti-Yashva and he was killing all Hebrews and stuff, remember, Paul was part Roman too. See, we don't get it. See, as back then, it's the same thing. We're going in a different direction with this, but praise Yah, right? Because I think the people who have ears, you've heard what it is, but hear what I'm saying, right? Right? You said, so once the Romans took power, that practice stopped. What practice? No, once the Romans took power, they still allowed. See, watch this. When Rome took over a place, they took over you, but they allowed you to at least have some semblance of self. So if you had certain beliefs or whatever, the Romans believed that you could believe in whatever you wanted, as long as you made sure that Zeus and certain people were going to get glory and stuff like that, and that you bow down to whoever their Caesars were at the time, or before then, really at this point, you're not even really technically dealing in Caesars too much. You're just starting to get the idea of Caesars, right? But when they killed people, when the Romans hung somebody from a tree in that time period, right? Like people are looking for everything they can. Look at what they did. We have tons of stories where we see that there were rows and rows and miles of people who were crucified in that time, right? Now, I know there's different types of crucifixion. Somebody might get into there's 8 definitions of crucifixion. Once again, look at what happened. By the way, things are mentioned like Golgotha Hill, right? Go look at Golgotha Hill. Tell me how many trees are on there, if you've been. You see what I'm saying? Like we're having a thought we're not using things that are there, right? But Paul was considered to be a Roman just as much as he was a Hebrew. It talks about that. That's why he got in trouble with some people or whatever. They try to bring him before, Roman authority, and he went to the Roman authority. He was like, "Why would you treat a Roman like this?" And they said, "Wait a minute, you're a Roman?" He said, "Of course I'm a Roman. Why? Because I'm in the land of your captivity. I'm one of you." And he was a rich Hebrew. He had money like that. He had bank at one point. He gave it the money to go ahead and start giving the word out and traveling all the time. He was like, "Yeah, of course I'm a Roman." I'm a Roman citizen on paper. He said, I'm an Israelite first, but on paper, you need me to be a Roman citizen, I'll be that. That's why I told y'all, look, look, I'm black all day, every day. I'm Israelite all day, every day. I'm native all day, every day. Whatever you want to call me, I fit the description. When I walk into a courtroom, I tell you about sovereignty. You walk into a courtroom, oh, I'm a non-citizen national. What does that mean? That means you protect me. How put your hands on me? I know who I am. That's what Paul did. He's speaking sovereignty. Right? We're having people having a different conversation. I'm just trying to show you you're arguing about something without getting to the man of it, without getting to the spirit of it. And that spirit is not the spirit you're into. That spirit supersedes your spirit. That important, because not only should we look like him in the spirit, but then after his likeness, anything that is like him is what we chase after. So if you're asking me to chase things that are not like him or are not like his culture, then of course I'm not going to be after it. How you doing, Minister Select-Shante? Of course I'm not going to be after it. You're asking for me to chase something that's not like him. If it's not like him, then I'm not after it. If it's not like him, I'm not after it. That's why I said I don't care what version of the Bible you're talking about. If you don't have the culture, you could read Hebrew better than I ever could. It doesn't matter. You could read Hebrew in its form before the form that we teach. You could read Hebrew inside and say, I know Aramaic and Hebrew, which, by the way, if you know it, you know the Aramaic and Hebrew use the same characters. You could use these different things, whatever it is. At the end of the day, if you don't know the culture, then you're going to miss it anyways. Because you had religious leaders back then who were speaking about as things, and they thought that because they were fruitful and multiplied better than everybody else, that they were better than everybody else. But they couldn't replenish and subdue. And therefore, since they couldn't see the replenisher and the one who subdued all by his own death. And they helped out in allowing his will to come to fruition anyways, because he said, no man taketh my life, but I lay it down. And I praise y'all for that, because if we had really taken his life, then there would be no place for forgiveness. That's the culture. We can argue it however you want, but that's the culture. That's why it starts with spirit. I'm not here to worry about what other spirits say. Right? I'm not just talking about teachers. I'm talking about in general, right? I'm not here to worry about what other spirits say. If it's not the spirit of Elohim, then it's not something that I follow. I might be aware of it, but it's not what I follow after. Why? Because I'm made inside of his image, spirit. My spirit is inside of his image, and therefore I chase anything after his likeness. If it looks like him, then that's what I want. Right? So even though my hair is clean, literally just conditioned a day ago, 2 days ago, and all that, whatever, and even though, but it might not fit what you want it to be, guess what? I'm not worried about that. I made a promise with him concerning my hair, and so I'm chasing after him, right? And I'm not worried about what you think about my image, because my outside image don't really matter to me outside of what my wife thinks about it, right? And what the Most High does, but I'm chasing after his likeness. And if we made a promise that says, hey, Yahweh, I'm going to grow this out for you. If you don't like what I did for him, well, then that's tough. I'm praying for you. I hope that you can get over that. You know what I'm saying? But I'm not chasing after what you want. I'm done trying to chase after being a United States citizen. I did it with the best of them. I served. I put my life on the line. I was willing to bleed. I know people that didn't come home. Had to drag people out. I've done my duty as far as that. And a lot of people who come on here, they ain't even done that. Right? But if that's what you're trying to be a part of and use the word to protect that, then protect it all you want. But I'm after his image, or I'm chasing after his likeness, and I'm trying to make sure that my spirit is of his image, and therefore his image is inside of me. That's why it's a symbiotic relationship. We should be in him, and he should be in us. That's the culture. Thanks for being part of the community, sweetie pie. Right? That's the culture. How you doing, Ed? Right? That's the culture. You hear what I'm saying? Inside of his image and after his likeness. That's the culture. From the beginning, that's why we chase after man, spirit. Right? Don't follow human or the humus part, right? If anything, look for the spirit, not to follow, but to see if your spirits intertwine. Amen, Sister Deborah. It's your spirits that are more important than your humus, right? Your spirit. How you doing, Fancy? Your spirit is what you're chasing. Your spirit is what attaches. right? Your flesh is a manifestation. That's why a lot of people mess up, because you're trying to get with flesh. So you get with flesh and you lay down with flesh, not even being qualified to lay down with flesh, because you didn't check to see if your spirits were compatible, if your spirits were signed off on. You sign away through your phallus, through your vaginal area, right? You put the seed in the garden and it doesn't even belong there, because you're looking at the flesh and not after the spirit. That's why anybody who just says Israel, anybody who just mentions black, anybody that just says, Jesus is a white man and his name is Yeshua. Anybody that says that, you just go, they say, because you're stuck on physical. But before that, look, I lay as approved. And then once I see that it's approved, I bring it unto Elohim to make sure he's the ultimate approval. And then I can be a workman that need not be ashamed, rightly dividing the word of truth. Right? That's why I tell y'all, don't believe it just because I say it. Study it. Study my life. Study to see what I'm saying makes sense. Look it up. Google it. Go to the encyclopedia. Go to the atlas. Go to the library. Do whatever you feel you got to do. Pray about it. Go to the master. Right? But we're dealing with people that are dealing in the flesh. That's how come you have a pastor that comes on and gets in front of y'all and says, what did he say that everybody was so outraged about? Oh, yeah, give me that Movado watch. I need that Movado watch. I can tell that y'all ain't living right, because how y'all treat me, you ain't got me no watch. So obviously you're broke. And therefore, since you're broke, you don't have no relationship with the Most High. That's all. That was a purely physical statement. That was a purely physical statement. And some of the people still, while he was telling them how bad they were and was making fun of them and going ad hominem and telling them that they were broke and deserved to be broke, until they bought him a watch. Some of them were still, check out the video, they still saying amen. And I bet you what they're going to make sure that they do, they're going to go broke to make sure that they get this dude a watch, and still not going to pay tithes and offering, which is what the tithe should go for. I'm sorry, the tithe and offering, to make sure that they do certain things. If anything, the tithe should only be given to the pastor, right? Or the widow, or the orphan, or the poor, or the stranger, should only go to them if they're in the will of Yah. Yeah, it was nothing but flesh. But that's what we start. That's where a lot of people start. They start in the flesh instead of the man. You think that because you're a man, it's dealing with male or female. You think that because you're a man, it's dealing with your flesh. Man was put inside of flesh. That's why you're human. Humus is your dirt. Man is your spirit. That's why people go to buildings and tithe to keep it open, but people don't tithe to make sure that the Levite, the widow, the orphan, the poor, and the stranger are taken care of. Right? One of the things that has blown my mind is that I've been in front of some of the biggest edifices in the world, and these huge buildings that are supposed to be monuments to, they call them even sometimes monuments to Jesus. And then I look outside the monument and it's just poor people all around. Something ain't adding up. If you tithing, I'd rather see people that are living well than a big building than I say is a monument to Jesus. Yeah, you focus on material wealth like that, and you're not even trying to hide it, for real, for real. Come on, right? Go to a bunch of churches. It's gonna happen in 2 days. People are gonna go to a bunch of churches around this time. They're gonna start making their way to churches, and they're gonna go and right as they're going to church right across the street, there's gonna be a liquor store, and people is getting drunk, and all people are gonna do is look at it and they go and shake their head. Meanwhile, Yashua was turning water into wine. And the wine was so amazing that it actually turned the person that was on that and say, wow, who made that? Something about that is better than anything I've had. I've tasted and seen. I don't know what that was, but who made that? Uh-oh. Yeah, I won't give a dime to the people in the corner asking right. Could be an angel that you're entertaining unaware. That's why you got to be in the spirit. Not everybody's an angel, but you got to be in the spirit. Game recognized game. But even still, you might be unaware. So you might at least want to slip a dime, like the person said. But we're focused on the male or the female more than the man. This is why a lot of our sisters say there ain't no good men anymore. What you mean is there aren't a lot of males that are men because their spirit, their man, their spirit is not right. You'll get it right, and then you'll start looking for the spirit rather than looking for the men. That could be part of the problem, is that you keep looking for man, but you keep talking about males. Males have, you need to see what kind of man is in the male. So before you open up your leg to see if the male member fits the female member, you need to first open up his heart and see, is the man inside the male valuable enough to even be considered worthy of being your husband? Keep talking about that there ain't no good woman, there ain't no good woman, wound man. You only focus on the womb of the man, right? You focus on the womb more than the man, really, because you focus on, I'm just trying to get part that's connected to the womb, but making sure that you, before we do this or whatever, I need the spirit, I need to know mindset, I need to hear you confess some things. What is your belief system? Can you look, this is my business and this is what I'm going to do, and this is what I'm trying to do for my children, my children's children, and even if you got children already, even if I got children already, whatever, we're going to come together. And so I've looked at you, I've studied you, I've seen that you're a wife. I'm not coming here for a date, I'm coming here for a marriage, and if you don't meet certain criteria, then I'm done with you. Thank you very much for participating. I will pray for you. But at the end of the day, I'm not just going out with somebody long enough to be able to say that I got somebody nicely shaped around me. I need somebody that's going to shape my life. Amen, Pearl, right? I need somebody going to shape my life. I don't need somebody that's just going to have a shape. My wife is shaped, but she shapes my life. And so because she shapes my life, help me, I will give my life. That's a bar right there. Because she shapes my life, I will give my life. Y'all got this thing twisted. You looking for a shape and not realizing she need to shape your life. If you're just looking for somebody in shape, go to the gym. There's a bunch of people over there that have a shape, supposedly, or trying to get a shape. But I'm trying to get somebody that shapes me. And because she shapes me, I need to help her now, and I need to get her better in her life and in her walk and in her talk and in her business and everything. I need her to be greater. I need her to make more money than me at one point if she can. Go ahead, make more money. You know why? Because if you make it, you shaping me. Anyways, what's yours is mine, what's mine is yours. Right? Some of y'all still singing that. What was that? Was that Heavy D said, I got nothing for love for you? And they sung, what's yours is mine, what's mine is mine. That's what some of y'all been looking for. If you got you trying to get a wife, but what's yours is mine, and what's mine is mine. I'm gonna have all the money. I'm gonna have all this. You just need to be buck naked in the kitchen and stuff. Shut your behind up and go somewhere. You talking about you need a husband, but you know what's yours is yours, or what's yours and what's mine is mine. So I want you to go ahead and make the money, do all this, make the material, bleed all this, but you can't tell me nothing about it. Even if I want to kill our child in my womb, you can't say a daggone thing about it. All you can do is beat it. And if you say anything about it, you're toxic. Man, go somewhere. Shut up and go somewhere. You are violent against the kingdom. Your very own kingdom. You are violent. Proverbs 18:22. Right? Everybody loves that. Right? Proverbs 18:22. What's that say? Proverbs 18:22. What's that say? He who finds a wife, you should be a wife already, finds a constitutional or great or Elohim-like thing, somebody who's after the image or inside the image and after the likeness of the Most High. You find that, right? And you will obtain favor, therefore, from Adam. What's the verse before that say, though? That we never put together with it. Proverbs 18:21. Death and life is in the power of the tongue, and those that love it will eat the fruit thereof. Meaning that if you find a wife, then her tongue decides where you're going to go. Wives, by what you speak, your house will flourish or it will die. Yeah, you are violent, real talk. Husbands out here saying that you would just bow down to whatever I say. You are violent. It says, submit yourselves one to another. You cannot fast without the other person. See, but you keep about the male, female before you think about the man. The man is, of course, divorce rate has gone up crazy to 77%. People getting divorces because it's a disease. People are getting divorces because you got to stay inside. People are getting divorces because you come to find out somebody likes to watch a different news program than you like to watch. How weak have we become? Some people lose their homes for a second, and now everything that they've done together now doesn't matter as much because they're a Cowboy fan or a Redskins fan or something like that. Whatever. I mean, like, this stuff is ridiculous because you focused on the male, female, you focus on the human, the male, female, the flesh more so than the man, the spirit. You're supposed to be fruitful, multiply, replenish, and subdue. This is a reasonable service. Watch this. Verse 29. So Elohim said, behold, this, pay attention, behold. What'd you say, Chima? You said they can't communicate with each other and not one of. Yeah, someone got married without being Lord, without being connected, without being a husband or a wife first. Watch this. Genesis 1:29. Behold, Elohim said, not Kofi. Right? Elohim said what? I have given you every herb and seed, which is upon the face of all the earth, and every, which really just means vegetation, all vegetation, is the fruit of a yeast. To you, it's for me. Question. Everything that comes out of anything that's here, right? And this is just a little tattered part of wherever I'm at, right? But we like to have stuff growing, especially wild stuff growing wherever we're at, right? Everything that you see, every tree, every herb, every fruit, every root, everything that's growing. It's yours. Y'all know I'm married to a herbalist, so I got to talk about this part. If it's supposed to be yours, why are you sick all the time? I mean, let's make it practical. You know, once again, by the shuts mentality. Let's go to the spirit of things. The one who created the physical put a spirit in you that said, be as natural, be in natural law as much as possible. Why are you sick all the time? Now, I know we have imperfect bodies, but a lot of our sicknesses just come because we drink more soda than water. Uh-oh. So you don't think that's spiritual. But there's a spirit that makes you say that it's more like some of you will drink. We'll talk about that you got headaches. Some of y'all, and I used to be one, real talk. You ready? Watch this. A lot of people you talking about, I got chronic migraines. Have you ever thought to yourself, maybe I should drink a gallon or 2 gallons of water every day and watch my migraines literally wash away? There you go, right? Even the word pharmakeia or pharmacy, right? Which is talking about witchcraft. You go into a place where they give witchcraft and you're looking for them to give you a medicine that's not even whole, it's not even natural. It's just they focus on a piece of it and they make what's called a formula. They don't give, like if you go to McDonald's and stuff, they don't give you a recipe at McDonald's, they give you a formula. That's how they make their food. It's formulaic. It's not natural. Even the way they make it, it's not natural. Right? And watch this. So you are spirit, you are body, and you have a soul that attaches the two, which means that if your spirit ain't right, it manifests things bad in the physical. But that also means that whatever your physical ain't doing is right, it's going to manifest itself in the mind, the spiritual. So if you eat poison, guess what you will think? Watch this. See, there's a scripture, but we don't get the culture. We don't get the mindset of it. So as a man speaketh, or so as a woman speaketh, right? But so as a man speaketh, so is he. So is that person, right? Why are you whatever you speak? You are what you eat, exactly. But why are you whatever you speak? They go hand in hand. Because whatever I speak, who's the first person to hear it? In order for it to come out of my mouth, so as a man thinketh, so as thought the mouth speak. It had to be something that started in here. I heard it. I was passionate about it. I presented it. I lived it so long, right? Hear what I'm saying? I lived this thing for so long. I did this thing for so long. So that it started to be spoken out. But also, whenever I speak it, not only did I get it here in my heart first, but I spoke it for so long, right? Or heard it, but now I spoke it out. Now my ears hear it. I'm the first person to receive what I spoke. Even the deaf person that cannot hear still hears in the spirit what they're saying before it's delivered to you. Right? So whatever I speak, what? I hear it before anybody else. That's the way the body's presented. Right? So as a man thinketh, so is he, because whatever I speak, it has to be in here first. See, some of y'all, because watch this, some of you guys, your love language is not words of affirmation. So you get in a relationship with people that do words of affirmation, and you'll just say some wild stuff because you don't really care what's said. So somebody can call you all types of dirty, disgusting, despicable things, and you will forget about it in the next couple of days, or even after an hour after saying it, right? But you get with the wrong person, right? And really, I won't even say the wrong person. Everybody continues to hold on to words. As much as people say they don't, they will use them against you in an argument, a few months from now, right? But you get with that person who speaks words of affirmation, and you're gonna have a hard time trying to get them to let it go, because their words, they meant everything to them. So you said you ain't never gonna be nothing. Every time now you try to give them a compliment, guess what words are there for them? Right? You spoke. See, we got to stop dealing with just the physical, deal with the spiritual too. You spoke, they would never amount to anything. So even though you with them 10 years later, guess what? In their heart, it's hard for them because they're still trying to release it. And even if they forgive, it doesn't mean they forgot. You don't have to forget to forgive. But you still won't speak their language. And you keep saying, man, it's just a word. It's just a word. Get over it. No, it's not just a word to that person. That was a spiritual attack. And because you were mad in the physical, you thought it was okay to say bad things about them in the spiritual. You didn't have limits. You didn't have boundaries. That's why you have a problem now. Not only do you not have boundaries for other people, you ain't got no boundaries for yourself. Some of y'all got boundaries for everybody else, but none for yourselves. But there's certain things that you should make sure you don't say, because once you say those things, certain things, they can't ever be taken back. And even though they're covered by the blood, right? And Yahweh might separate them as far as the east is from that west. That person you're with, they deal with flesh every day. And so you better praise Yah. They're with you 10 years later, but in their spirit, they're still trying to deal with this thing, and they're trying their best to be cleansed of this negative spirit that you spoke on them. You spoke that spirit on them, and then are mad because they won't let it go. It wouldn't exist had you not spoke it. You said you spoke life over your son, and now people call him cocky. He's just confident, knows what he wants. Yeah, there's a difference. Most deaf. Yeah, it's not just a random word you speak it. Right? Somebody's love language is acts of service. You know that they like acts of service. So you get mad at them and you say, you know what I'm going to do? I know she like this, whatever. I'm just not going to do it. I'm just not going to go. I'm not going to clean up for a month. I'm not going to clean the gutters. I know she likes the gutters clean. I'm not going to clean the gutters. Right? Feminine men and women. I'm going to say that again, feminine men, because these men to be thinking they alphas or whatever they call themselves, they do feminine stuff. So feminine men and some of our sisters out here talking about, oh, they did me wrong, or I didn't like what they did, or I'm mad at them. I'm just not going to give them sex. Who is you? Who raised you? It wasn't a Bible believing person, because the Bible believing person taught you that your body is not your own. And if this person is going to be for nobody but you, how are you going to make them go 2, 3, 4 months without 5 months? Some of y'all done made people go a year without sex. Yeah, I know. We pastors ain't supposed to talk about that. But some of y'all done made people go a month, 2 months, 3 months, 4 months. Who are you? Your body don't belong to you. And then when they start getting upset or frustrated, even if they don't cheat, but they start thinking about other things or other people or whatever, and they start cheating. And I'm not saying they should, but when they start getting into emotional relationships, then you sitting there saying how bad it was. Why are you putting them through that punishment? They shouldn't have been punished. Not for that. If you're going to stay with them, stay with them. Oh, y'all don't want to hear that, right? That might be extreme example, but acts of service. We hurt people because we know what it does. Or we know that person likes it when I clean up or whatever. I'm not going to clean up for the rest of this year just to show them. And so when I start cleaning up again the way I was cleaning, then they'll take it for no. Like, why are you basing what you do based upon what somebody else does? You in the wrong type of relationship. We've said this before, and let me say it again, right? Don't get into this thing where you're not in natural mode, right? In natural laws too, right? Don't do this weird thing. And some of y'all not just doing it to your spouse, and some of y'all doing it to your children. Some of y'all not just doing it to your family. Some of y'all doing it to the people you have jobs with and stuff like that. Yeah, always plotting and stuff like that. Ready to beat somebody up, ready to get the knockout blow, ready to go on like the girl did. My wife was telling me about some girl who apparently, was with a guy. The guy got her pregnant, whatever, ends up leaving her. And the child, after 3 years, he realizes what he did was wrong. He tries to come back, and she acts like she's going to him back in. Now, I'm not saying that he did anything that's righteous, right? But he tried to come back, make it work. She made it so she went through this whole thing, put together this thing. They stayed together, and what was it, for a year, something like that at least. Then all of a sudden, on the day of the wedding, she makes sure that she posts on social media, yeah, I'm supposed to be getting married today, but I'm not going to get married to him because of what he did to me, blah, blah, and leaves him at the altar, make sure that her and her child will show up. Now, I guess, that he did you wrong, but if you hadn't forgiven or you didn't think that he was somebody worth doing it, why would you waste a year of your life giving acts of service to somebody? She knew that his love language was there. He realized he messed up. He realized that he shouldn't have done it. He wanted to come back to her, as she used it to be able to have him posted on Facebook. Just be done with him at that point. You messed up your child's life. Your child thought that that was daddy. You had to smile a few times and be like, oh, this family thing is nice. And still be like, yeah, but it's not as important as destroying, this marriage again, to make sure that this time I'm the one that gets to say I destroyed it rather than he destroyed it. What kind of, but that's the links that people are going to, right? Something's in your heart. That's a spirit. That's not the physical. That's your spirit. You need to figure that out. Some people got a love language, gifts. So somebody likes to get gifts. You know what? I'm not going to give them gifts. I'm not going to do something. Or this person's we try to call people male and female. We try to call them what do you call them? Not trophy wives or trophy husbands, but not chicken his. Not what is it? When the person just wants gold diggers, we try to call them gold diggers. Hey, gold digger, they just want stuff all the time. I promise you, somebody's language is gifts. Just pick a flower off the road from time to time. Just make sure he gets to watch the game on a Sunday or something like that, right? And when he's watching the game, like, give him some chips. You know what I'm saying? If his language is gifts and her language is gifts, also you'll find that is their language, because they're constantly giving you gifts. But they can, that's why you pray about this stuff before you get into it, right? But what if your spiritual love language is quality time? Some people will deny people quality time and then be like, well, I don't understand why he's so upset. I don't understand why she's so upset. Like, give that person their time. Some of us have people who are we always got friends, family. We always serve. We always tell people, gotta serve. I used to be this person, gotta serve, gotta go to the assembly. I make sure I do this. I was a yes man before anybody could finish a sentence. Kofi, could you help with? Yes, no problem. Kofi, we need the children. Yeah. Kofi, can you use your gas money to? Yeah. Kofi, I know that you don't even make no money, and your wife and your child need money, but can you make sure you give 10? Sure, anything from the Lord. At some point, Yahweh himself has to start sending people to me and being like, yo, Kofi, spend some time with your family. Right? Like, Kofi, it's okay to take a day off. Like, things move without you. And if they don't move without you, it's because you didn't set things up correctly. Like, leave some things to somebody else, right? Like do something for quality time. Look, my love language is quality time. Or I'm sorry. Well, so my love language is a little different. Like, I have like a calling love language, and I have like my personal love language. And my calling love language, words of affirmation and acts of service, big time, right? And all of us come out of all 5 acts of service anyways, but we just have certain percentages. But like the main things that drive me is like my acts of service. Words of affirmation and acts of service. It used to be words of affirmation and and quality time for people outside of my family, until I realized that a lot of people will take your time and they won't ever do what they say they're going to do, but they'll speak nice of you, and they'll just think that because they take time out to say something nice, they know that you'll keep moving. So now, professionally and even with organization, like, I'm very big on, okay, if you say it, I'm trying to see what you're trying to do, right? Don't just like hit me up and then just say something and then you don't do nothing, right? Because then I'm not gonna hear you when you say, I want you to do blah blah, well, you don't do nothing. Like, that's, but on my personal time, like with my family, my love language is still acts of service, but then secondarily it's quality time. So I don't really care, like, for my born day, right? Like October 6th, I'm gonna be turning 40. I don't need like the world presented. I don't need the best restaurant. I don't need a color scheme. I don't need a signature by whatever. I don't need $5 billion. I don't need nothing like that. I just want to be able to spend time with my wife, spend some time with my child. But for the most part, I just want to spend time with my wife. and I will be fine if if I get to spend a little bit of the morning with a little bit of rising with my son. I've done that a long time. A little bit of rising with my son, spend some time with him, and then let him spend time with his family or whatever, and cousins, grandma, something like that. He can spend the night with them. I can go somewhere with my wife, like for the rest of the day. That'd be the greatest day. You in October? You on the 1st? Okay, I'll try to remember that. I'm not great at memory of those things. I'm trying. We probably should have a couple people that are overborn days, and that way we can know when it's up. I actually do. I've been a lot better with saying happy born, but yeah, like quality time. So some people will rip away quality time, or some people will give everybody else the quality time. I'm going to give it to a charity. I'm going to give it to this. I'm going to give it to the garden. I like gardening. Why you getting in the garden, right? But your garden looks great. Your grass is manicured. Your feet and your hair are manicured and pedicured. Like you're doing all these great things. You done came up, and your spouse done came up with you, but your spouse doesn't think that you love him, and you're like, well, we done came up. Why don't you think that I love you? We done came up. Acts of service speaking. We done came up. I tell you all the time how much I love you and I appreciate you. Words of affirmation, show. We done came up. I did not just give you this, and did not just take you out to eat here, and did not just give you flowers the other day. Your gifts are showing up. But that person is saying, I need quality time. It's great, but spiritually, I'm missing something because I'm created to receive and to give quality time. And when I don't get it, I can't, right? But I'm only giving it. My love tank is on empty, or it's negative now, right? You got this negative bank in your bank account, and your love bank account with me. And if you don't fill it up, I'm gonna start doing what banks do. I'm gonna start giving you penalties, and then eventually I'm gonna start giving you super penalties, and then eventually I'm just gonna go ahead and say, you know what? Thank you very much, but I'd rather go ahead and have people that are going to be in this bank account that are going to put in. Stop focusing on the physical without making sure spiritually the man is right. There's a female man and there's a male man. Every one of us have a man inside of us. Make sure that man is taken care of. What else though? The fifth one, right? The fifth one, which is a big one too, right? It's a huge one. This is one that everybody tries to act like there ain't none of this, especially when people get so spiritual, so right, so holy, so high-minded that they ain't no of any earthly value. Watch this, right? Then comes what? Physical touch. I see what you did there, Bree. Right? So here comes the last one, physical touch. Uh-oh. Yeah, the overdrafts is a monster, right? Here comes physical touch. Physical touch. And look, some of y'all got different than some of y'all do, right? Some of y'all married to freaks. You should have had a discussion before y'all got married. Y'all should have talked about it. But because we're supposed to be so holy, we don't even talk about it, right? You should have had that discussion. How much sex you like, right? Like, people don't want to talk about it. But even when I do one-on-ones, when I do marital coaching, stuff like that, like, we're going to talk about that. How much sex do you want? What kind of sex do you want? Especially because a lot of y'all are virgins coming into this, which means that y'all have had other experiences determine for you what sex is supposed to be. How much you want? I know you don't want to talk about how much you want. Watch this. How much? I know y'all don't think this is the same for men, which is not. As far as women, you need to hear certain things and things like that. But men like to be touched throughout the day to let them know that hey, I'm looking at you. I know y'all don't think about that with men, but men like to be touched. We only think women like to be touched. Oh, just hug us. Men don't do hugging, but men like touch. Oh, I'm walking around somewhere and I feel something. Oh, because we always ready. So the second somebody acknowledges we're always ready, right? You got to go to the natural man. He put the herb yielding seed down on the earth. He put the natural thing in the earth. He put the masculine and the feminine, right? Let's like, even spiritually speaking, right? Spiritually speaking, it's going to manifest in him in a masculine way. This is why it's important that you talk to your children about sex when they're really young, especially these boys. You know what happens to boys? Boys can just be sitting in class. Nothing is happening of any value. And because he's learning, his body is learning and adapting to be an adult male, guess what's going to happen? He's going to get an erection because he's created to do so. He cannot even control himself. You say you love hugs? Okay, well, some men love hugs. Amen. And Brother Vincent corrected me. Some men love hugs. And I like hugs at times too, right? But I'm saying like the hug is not necessarily my number one thing to go to as far as a touch, right? Just give me a touch. Even like, during the hug, what like a nice thing is during the hug, not just a regular hug, but when they hug and the head goes in the chest and then put the hand on the chest. Because that's the thing of being like, I'm secure. I like that because I'm supposed to secure you. So even we like touch, right? Even we like touch, right? But we like touch when it shows us that, oh yeah, I'm able to secure you, right? And ladies, a lot of our sisters get that in the bedroom where they tell us to make sure that they secure and even trust us with some wild stuff that make sure that their lives are literally in our hand. I won't touch that right now, but y'all could probably imagine what I'm talking about, just in case some of the babies are watching. We don't want to go too deep into that, right? But your babies ain't learning about sex from you, but they learn about it from everybody else. They learn about it from all these songs. They learn about it from dress, from clothing, right? All the little girls now, they're wearing clothing to wear all these words right here so that everybody can focus on them when they finally get a little something to be able to have their words sit on. And when they realize they get a little attention or whatever, but touch is important, physical touch, right? For a little girl, physical touch is extremely important because physical touch for a woman is going to be extremely important. Get this. The little girl that gets physical touch ain't looking for physical touch between her legs. If she getting physical touch and hugs, physical touch on her head, patting the head, right? Physical touch on keeping an arm around them, physical touch on, hey, I want, you know what? I'm going to even the things you physically wear. You can wear a dress and it be sexy without it having to be something where people are looking for sex. Or matter of fact, let's put it like this, because I know there's some young girls that watch this. You can wear clothes without it having to be sexy. It's okay for it to look elegant and not sexy because you don't have to, right? Amen. Minister Tamara said that her father gave the best hugs, right? Like you physical touch, holding hands. For a brother, pat on the back, even for some sisters, but a pat on the back can be everything. One of the reasons why we're led to try and meet people as much as possible, as much as we do, or travel as much as we do, because it's one thing to see us, to even hear from us, to even get phone calls from us, to have Zoom meetings and all that stuff, to do one-on-ones, but there's nothing like when we show up and we look you in the face. You might remember that for the rest of your life, because I remember it for the rest of mine. I'm not a great person with names, but I'll remember I looked this person in the face, and that means more. And then when I can put the name and the face together, oh, wow, that's powerful, right? But physical touch is extremely important, and for different reasons for different people. We got to get to the natural. You have the main things that were natural, herb yielding seed for you to be able to eat. Natural. There are things that are natural. And people get into marriages and don't even discuss something as simple as like, hey, how much sex, how sexually active are you? Even if you haven't had sex for years, back then, how sexually active were you? Because your mindset might be that when we get together, you need it this much. So we might need to talk this out before we get into it. I might not be as active as you are, but I might need to become that depending on what the conversation yields. Because I might not mind being more sexually active, but we need to have that conversation. Yeah, and it helps. There you go. And if applied correctly, they help people to heal. Because what if somebody's idea of quality time or physical touch is only sex? So every time that you touch them and you don't have sex with them, they might be thinking, why you touch me and then want to do something. You don't love me. You don't want to, right? Like some people, this is something that we deal with because we deal with a lot of biblical stuff. Some people get into these relationships and don't want to admit anything about sex or that they have a strong sex drive. And so they get there and they try their best to be with somebody and they go like years and years and everything seems to be fine. Then one day they come to their spouse and they're like, why don't you love me? And they're like, what you mean? You don't ever want to have sex with me. We don't have, we only have sex, once every 2-3 days. And they're like, well, I mean, you never said you wanted anything different. I thought I was respecting you. I don't want to feel like I'm forcing you this and that. And the other person's like forcing me. I need you to do more, right? Like you never had that conversation. So here you are where one person's been building up in their head 5-10 years that the other person really isn't worthy of being their spouse because that person doesn't love them, but because your idea of physical touch was different, right? And by the way, like 1 every 3 days for some people is like a whole lot. There's some people who get together and the couples don't necessarily need it but once every week or something like that, and that's a lot for some couples. That's a little less than what I need. But praise y'all. Like, y'all do what y'all do. How you doing, Sabrina? Right? But y'all do what y'all do. Everybody's got a different level. Everybody's got a different level to things, right? Everybody needs things a little different, and you got to communicate those things. You have to have conversations, and every time you're having a conversation, everything that we do, right? So there's things that we were naturally given, right? Whatever we're speaking, we're eating. Whatever, and you're speaking, what is it? Only 7% of your communication is verbal. So you all day without saying a word. That's why your children learn from you even when you don't say anything. How you doing, Israel? Thanks for being on. Shalom, fam. So it says, behold, pay attention. I've given you every herb bearing seed, which is upon the face of all the earth, and every tree in the wild, in the which is the fruit of a tree yielding seed. To you it shall be for meat. That means it shall be for you. It shall be for sustenance, right? Verse 30. At, going towards what? And to every beast of the earth, at to every fowl of the air, at to everything that creepeth upon the arats, upon the earth, wherein there is life. I have given every tree, every green herb for meat, and it was so. Right? Now watch this. There's something that's important to getting that aware. Did you guys catch the fact everything we're in there to put out there, because people will begin to tell you that they can carve a stone and call it a name, and that it therefore has life. Right? People believe that they can make a step to entertain. Right? May I go a little deeper with this, though? We're not going to be on here too much longer. However, allow me to go be a little more profound, if I might. There are not only does everything on earth not have life, but not every person on earth has life either. Salah. We can try and go back over that bridge. I think I know what you're asking, Sister Cynthia, as far as how much sex has that changed after. But a lot of time that comes to, once again, it comes to conversations that weren't had prior to the marriage. And then after the marriage, it also turns into stuff that really has to do with love language stuff. And sometimes people are willing to give you your love language until you walk down the aisle or give it, let's just talk adult, give it up, whatever, something like that. Because a lot of people weren't really trying to be with you, right? They weren't trying to be for you. They were trying to make sure that they had what you had. But we can talk about that in a second, right? But there are a lot of people that don't have that walk around that do not have life. The Walking Dead, I'm on, right? Like, some people just don't have life. There are those of us who what? There are those of us who have a form of Elohim but deny the power thereof. So you have something that looks like Elohim, but it's not alive. You said, how does not every person have life? Here's a scripture for you. The enemy comes, but to kill, steal, and destroy. However, Yahshua said that he has come that you might have life and more abundantly. So there's a lot of people out here walking around where the enemy has been allowed, because you have to allow it. It doesn't just happen. You have to allow it. But the enemy has killed, stolen, and destroyed while people are walking around right now. People that feel dead inside. You hear people say that? There's people that go to church, run around, dance, and they come to church because that's the only time that they're going to feel emotionally valuable. Because it's a circus. Cirque, church, they actually come from the same word. It's a circus. You said your son calls them non-playable characters. Yeah, you said some look like human, but they are the seed of fallen angels. I mean, some of that. I mean, the seed of fallen angels, even the seed of fallen angels thing, they had to get the seed through physical beings. But, nevertheless, like, yeah, there's some stuff that still exists on the earth that comes from that, for sure. Right? Because Noah existed when Noah and them went. We forget, just like Yahshua had to die for everybody, when Noah and his family came through the flood, they basically had, when you study and you see the sons and where they're connected to and where they go to, and Noah and his wife and then their wives, you'll see that basically they represent everybody. So we have everything that's come across. That's how come people even before Noah can be saved, right? And can still go to heaven, because everybody has to be represented in the bloodline. That's why Yahshua, when he died, or when he was born, rather, before he could die for us, he had to be born for us. So in order to be born for us, you look at the genealogy. That genealogy shows you that everything and everybody who's ever been in existence is under, physically under him, as well as everything that's ever been existed is spiritually under him. That's what his birth represents. You know, but a lot of people have stolen, have killed, and have destroyed. How many people have killed? Let's just be honest. I'm put my hand up. How many people have killed somebody else's reputation, not even knowing what's going on, just speaking bad about them? I've done that. I've had to repent of that. I repent of it again right now in front of you. Right? Like you get to. We'll see if we can go to the watches thing. I'm not sure we have time for it today, Sister Barbara, but that's well, yeah, I don't know. We're probably gonna have to talk a little bit about that, because we're talking about creation. So we still haven't even gotten to the picture of all the stuff, you know, and making sure that people see the firmament and the quiet and all that stuff like that. So we still got a lot of stuff to get into, right? But yeah, so we can probably talk about that some as well, because that Watchers piece is it's definitely valuable as far as for people that are focused on that one part for sure. So thank you for bringing it up. Keep me hold me accountable too. If you need to text me, if you need to blow my phone up, if you need to make it to a point where I'm like, fine, Sister Barbara. But I'm serious. I'm saying that jokingly, but I'm saying that lovingly too, because really, like, that's something that I don't put as much stock in as others do, but that's something we should talk about more. So, you know, so thank you for bringing it up. I probably wouldn't have gone directly to the Watchers, or at least spent that much time, had you not mentioned it. So we need to make sure that it's there. I'd say give me like probably 2 or 3 more days, and it should be something where you start seeing it pop up a lot more. But yeah, thank you for the reminder though, for real. Like I don't think we dealt with that outside of like maybe 10 minutes the last time we did this series. So yeah, so I appreciate that. But yeah, you know, like you got to see, like, even in Noah, all these people were represented. Like the giants we're talking about, and the Watchers, and you're talking about the you know, the sons of men and the daughters and all this. Like, these people were represented through Noah as well, right? The angels left, but the angels had to use bodies, right? They weren't fallen angels yet. They were angels, and then they came down to earth. When they tried to get back up into heaven, the Most High shut it down and said, y'all did what y'all did. Then they became fallen, and then they went under the devil, right? So even when we talk about fallen angels, the angels were not fallen when they took over the bodies. Did y'all catch that? Right? We'll get into that more and more. You know, however, once again, you got to recognize, like, who you. So you're right, and not everything live, or not everything that's on the earth has life. Not everyone on the earth has life. That's why Yahshua comes back to correct it. Remember, when we're talking about this stuff here, we have to remember this is perfection. Right? We got to remember this is perfection here. In our perfect state, we will be fruitful, multiply, replenish, and subdue. In our perfect state, we will be inside of his image and after his likeness. In our perfect state, we will be eating all herb yielding seed. We will recognize that there are things that are alive and things that aren't alive. Perfect state. So in our perfect state, everybody that is a child of the Most High, in that state, all of us were children of the Most High. Okay. In our perfect state, how many of us are children of the Most High? Everybody. Question is, are we all in a perfect state? Are any of us truly in a perfect state? That's a whole other question. But is everybody trying to be perfected in the word, or is everybody just trying to be whatever they feel like being? See? Which one are we? Hello, Sister Beverly. Which one are we? Right? Who are you trying to be like? Do not find it strange when your family tries to say that they don't like you being in this, because you guess what? I'm not trying to talk bad about your family, but you trying to get perfected. Is Pookie and them trying to get perfected right now? Maybe not. No, I ain't mad at Pookie, but Pookie and them might not be trying to get perfected. Is Tay Tay and them trying to get perfected right now? Probably not. Is JoJo trying to get better right now? Probably not. Is Tank trying to get perfected right now? Probably not. So if they're telling you why you sound different and look different. You're supposed to, because you trying to be perfect and they trying to stay imperfect. Matter of fact, when you try to perfect them, when you try to say, man, you could be so much better and greater if you would just do this, man, and I'm here for it, and I'm here to support you, and you want to do this and you want to do that, yeah, let's get it, let's grind. Like, you give them all this stuff and they start saying, yo, I don't need to change, right? Only God can judge me. That's their way of saying, I'm okay with being imperfect. Like, chill with all this trying to be better stuff. Chill out. Why are you trying to get me to be giving you more hugs and stuff, girl? Just love me for me. He's saying, I ain't trying to learn the love language right now. I'm cool with mine and I'm all right. Yo, bro, like, why are you asking me to do this? And why are you asking me to do? And it's like, don't I do enough? Don't I cook enough? Don't I clean enough? I do all this. Don't tell me nothing. Okay, she's trying to say, I'm not trying to learn your love language. This is what I do. And I'm not trying to become perfected. I'm not trying to become, the word perfect, by the way, doesn't just mean that you are 100% right. The word perfect, or to even be perfected, it means to be greater. It means to be more mature. So you're maturing. When I say I'm perfecting, I'm maturing. When I'm saying I'm perfect, I'm saying I'm mature. So it also means to grow, to be perfect, to mature, right? It also means to do something that is complete. You cannot be holy if you're not complete. Holy is, put a W before that H. Holy is to be whole. Holy, to be one. Hero Yasrael, Yasrael Elohim Aleph. Hero Israel, the Lord Elohim is one. And therefore you must love him with all the heart, the soul, the mind, and the strength. And second, like it is to this, then you can love you as you love you. So you can't be perfect, complete, without being holy. And you can't be holy without being complete. But there's a lot of people that are incomplete. Therefore, there are a lot of people that look like they have life, but are soulless. Right? There are people who have literally sold their soul. Same to you, Dennis. Have a great day. Right? They cannot be holistic. They cannot be holy. Some of y'all sell your souls for your spouse. I'll do whatever she wants. I'll do whatever he wants. You bet not. You better learn their love language. Don't do whatever. Some of y'all marriages didn't work because you did whatever. They can yell at me. They can call the police on me. They can throw knives at me. They can do all this stuff. The dude that just died in Nigeria or whatever, he gave up his own people and said that, black people were terrible and black Americans were terrible. And he got with the white girl, the OnlyFans girl, and then he got stabbed. Yeah, some people will sell their soul for a pot of porridge, their birthright. Right? If Esau didn't sell his birthright, I wouldn't have the birthright I had. Yeah, I mean, some people, you hear what I'm saying? Right? But you're trying to become perfect. You need to be whole. You need to be whole in this thing. Don't be a part. Don't be a small little piece. Your marriage is supposed to be a holy union. When you lay down, that's marriage. When you get in the bedroom, that's marriage. When sperm enters, that's marriage. When the egg receives it, that's marriage. And when the fruit comes out of it, comes out of marriage. That's marriage. That's sex. But guess what? Guess what? That's being whole. Everything that you do is whole. And by the way, why do we talk so much about marriage? Because your children come out of marriage. There's not one person that exists on the earth that didn't come out of a marriage. Somebody says, well, my daddy wasn't there. I don't know my mom. I don't know my parents. They still had to get married. They still had to have sex. Sex is marriage. Marriage is sex. You're only here because of marriage. You're only here because the Most High married you. That's how that works. That's why we talk a lot about marriage, because it starts with marriage. Marital law. Nobody talks about marital law. Isn't it interesting? People want to argue universal law. They want to argue common law. They want to argue natural law. They want to argue law of attraction. They want to argue law of equity. They want to argue substantial law. They want to argue procedural law. They want to argue remedial law. They want to argue public law. They want to argue private law. But I talk about marital law, and you ain't got nothing for me. But then you want your community to be better. But your community is born out of marriages. You want to talk about Adam and Eve? Well, Adam and Eve is a marriage. Adam named all the animals and realized he was the only one that wasn't marrying nobody. He wasn't getting into physical touch. He wasn't having no sex. He had no fruit to speak of. Then the Most High said, hey, you see, it is not constitutional that you should be alone, which means what? All one or all in one. I shall make for you a helpmeet. Go to sleep. I got this. Goes inside, takes what's in him, pulls it out or whatever. And now out of what he's formed, he makes or shapes or builds something to a specific is to the certain specs, right? To ensure that now when the two come together, they can be one, but he's not all in one, right? They can be one, but she's not all in one. You said, what's my view of fornication? Well, let me not give you my view. Let me give you the Most High's view. The Most High's view of fornication is simple, right? You're not qualified to have sex with the person you're having sex with. Sex is marriage. Marriage is sex. Culturally speaking, now, if you want, and thank you for the love, right, Brother Jermaine. Now you can do whatever you want with it if you represent somebody else's culture, but if you're gonna be within this culture and kingdom culture, right, in Israelite culture, and in Yashael's culture, in the word culture, right, even the culture that presents the Aleph Bet, in Aleph culture, whatever it is, whatever you want to call it, fornication is when you have sex with anybody, or maybe say anything. Everybody keep it there, because a lot of people aren't, right? I got to say anything because people, we got to be honest, but we have babies that watch. I got to be careful. So we got to be careful, because if you have sex with anybody or anything, because people ride things, insert themselves into different things, whatever, right? Without me going too deep into it. But we got to be careful, because a lot of people who are claiming that they can masturbate we're just thinking of absolutely nothing. It's pretty much impossible. Most people, if you're masturbating or doing something, you're pretty much doing it thinking about somebody to try and get yourself to that place, right? But yeah, as far as fornication in and of itself is just simply having marriage with anybody or anything that is not qualified, or even if you yourself are not qualified. So you can be somebody who's not qualified to be a husband, but find a wife, and she don't know that you're not a husband. Well, guess what? When you lay down with her, it was actually fornication, because you're supposed to be a husband already, but you're not prepared for what takes place, right? All adultery always falls into fornication, but adultery is a specific thing, a specific place. So all adultery is fornication, right? But adultery is when we're having the added thing on of you're both supposed to already be qualified as husband and wife, and then you stepped outside on top of that and had fornication. That's a whole nother level, right? But fornication is anybody who's having relation with anybody or anything that is not qualified to have it with. Praise y'all for comprehension. Praise y'all for understanding. Right? That's his word. That's his word. That's his word. They call him Abba. So we have to get to a place where anything, and that's why even spiritually, once again, focus on the man and not the male female. Focus on the spirit and not the physical, right? That's why even in the spirit, a lot of people commit fornication. That people don't like it when we talk, but that's why we say things about the church that we do, because if you're going to go to a place and you know that they're going to celebrate Christmas, but you can say, well, you know what, even though it's wrong, even though Jeremiah chapter 10 verse 1-5 tells me it's wrong, excuse me, even if the word tells us not to be about these pagan deities and stuff, but we're still going to worship them, right? But we're going to sprinkle Jesus on it. Sprinkling Jesus on it doesn't mean that just because it tastes like Jesus, that it's what Yashvai is here for. You said if you fornicate outside of your marriage, you weren't qualified to be a husband or wife. Therefore, well, let me put it like this. There are some people that are qualified that will mess up, but most people who are going to fornicate in their marriage are people that weren't qualified. You got to go through a teaching. You got to go through a teaching process, a growing process, a living process. Right? Like there can be somebody who's qualified for marriage. There can be somebody who's qualified for marriage and and fell short. Right? Like, it's like Somebody can be qualified to be a pastor and can do something that says you need, where we have to say, sit your butt down. That doesn't mean that they weren't called. It just means that they fell short. And therefore, there are certain things they should do to make sure that they get back into qualification again. You said disqualified include the physical or act of getting married. So marriage, so in our culture, marriage is sex and sex is marriage. Matter of fact, even if you are going to do it in the West, before you walk down, when you walk down the aisle with somebody and do all that stuff, right, then you're going to go in front of go in front of a judge. Maybe you go in front of a preacher. You take your certificate, it's signed, and then you take it and you get married, right? And even in that Western culture, if you were to never have sex after that, let's say you've been together 3 months and for whatever reason y'all haven't laid down yet and had sex, you could go before the judge and be like, hey, we have, Your Honor, we haven't had sex. And the judge will annul the marriage. Why? Because if you didn't consummate, if you didn't have sex, it's not legal. So the sex is marriage piece is so marriage and sex are the same. We just don't know it as such, right? But marriage and sex are the same thing, right? So that's not the problem as far as the thought process for us, right? When you're talking about fornication, though, and let me read your question again just to make sure that I get it correct. So it's qualified. Yeah. So qualified is talking about specifics. So for example, how would we raise a male in our culture? Charles Sedona, like, that's a very important part. How are males and females even raised? I usually use the male as an example because the husband's supposed to be the one that set the environment. We're supposed to be the foundations. And also the females are basically almost raised exactly the same until you get to when she's a woman. So maybe I'll explain because I don't always explain it properly. So, or to the T. So let me explain both a little bit. I'm going to be real fast because my device is about to, go out on us. At least the TikTok, the part of the device, if I'm led, maybe we'll stay on YouTube or something. But I'm pretty much finished because we're in Q&A mode at this point. So I can tell we're pretty much finished. However, the what is it? So like with a male in our culture, this is how you would raise a male. All right. You ready? The mailman, you're right. The boy that goes from, prince to adult king. All right. From ages 0 to 3, that means while he's inside the womb. But from ages 0 to 3, right, you would raise him as you're nothing more than you are a boy. You are a male. You were a male. That was what we would get into his mind. You are a male. Certain things you're going to do, wear, not do, not wear, not entertain, right? Certain groups that you will never be in, right? Like certain things you will not be around, certain things you're not allowed to watch, whatever. You are a male. That's how we do, right? Ages 4 to 6, we would then get him weaned from mother. What does that mean? Thank you, Seven. Right? What does that mean? Weaned from mama. Why are we weaning you from mama? Well, you're already probably weaned from mother's milk at this point, if your age is 4 to 6. But we're weaning you from mom as far as we don't want you to become a mama's boy. So come out away from mama a little bit, right? You don't need to be on not a female. She would not necessarily be weaned from mama in the sense that she wouldn't hang out with mom as much, but she would be weaned from mama as far as like, okay, you don't have to be under her for everything. We're going to start giving you little tiny tasks here or there that mom does so that you won't think that mom has to do everything, right? Then from there, ages 7 to 9, right, how we raise our children, you would say ages 7 to 9, he becomes dad's apprentice, right? The male will become dad's apprentice. Whatever daddy does, he's going to do. And if daddy's not around anymore for whatever reason, I say this in a weird manner, but I'm actually saying prayerfully it's because he's dead. The reason is if he's not around, I don't want him to not be around just because there's divorce or because dad has decided to leave, right? But if dad's not around for whatever reason, then he needs to be raised by somebody who, whatever they do, whatever that male does, he's going to do. And hopefully it's somebody in the same family, because in our culture, our families are supposed to do the same thing as well. That's how you keep generational wealth, as your family keeps building on to the generation before it is done, right? Matter of fact, well, I'll talk about how important that is in a second, right? And it's in the scripture as well, but we don't know our culture. So you continue to do that. The little girl, she's going to be mama's apprentice in a sense. She's not really an apprentice, but she's going to be hanging around mama, and she's also going to hang around dad. And so mom and dad are going to be more influential. As going to be heavy as they have. All right. Now ages 10 to 12 come, we start giving you that written down education. Like you need to know all of the same stuff that they be acting like you got to have from pre-K all the way to now. They're trying to give you all 2 extra grades, like pre-K now to 14, grade 14, they're trying to give you. And then you can go to, everybody then can kind of skip community college and just go to regular college or whatever this weird thing is they're doing. really we give you a whole bunch of that ages 10 to 12 because we're already training you on certain things. So if you were around dad, for example, right? If you're a male and you're around dad, ages 7 to 9, right? If dad is a carpenter, you'll become a carpenter, which means that you had to learn measurements. You had to learn certain woods. You had to learn certain things about nature. You had to learn how to be able to clean up. You had to learn, like, there's a lot of things you had to learn just because, right? So when Yashua is a carpenter, it's because Joseph was a carpenter. So it was Joseph's responsibility to make sure that Yashua was there. Now watch this. Yashua was so trained as a carpenter that what did he do? He built the kingdom of heaven inside those who were poor in spirit, because daddy taught him how to do that. Even though it wasn't his father had already taught him something, but even his earthly daddy had a share in making sure that you and I were able to go from poor in spirit and be able to be built up, that by the end of the Beatitudes, we went from being poor in spirit to now also being a place where we rejoice when people say bad things about us. That was some Joseph up in. Don't even think about Joseph though, because we don't the fathers and their importance. But Joseph, even though he had passed away by the time Yashua starts walking into his being a rabbi at age 30, it doesn't mean that he had taught some things, right? So whatever daddy does, the son did, right? And whatever mama does, daughter's going to do, right? However daddy treats his wife is how the son's going to treat his wife. However the mother treats her husband is how the daughter's going to treat her husband. And the husband and daughters, or the sons and daughters, when they come into contact with the opposite sex as far as their parents, they'll be looking at how the parents treat each other and how they treat them. It's going to be a continuation. Yeah, those that don't teach to steal or do teach to steal, whatever the case is. Right? We're already teaching you what it is to be an adult. So by age 16, that's why you have the bar mitzvah or the bat mitzvah, or what people call the bar mitzvah, the bat mitzvah. At age 16, we are saying when you turn 16, we've trained you, and you've actually been brought in front of a group. You're actually supposed to be brought in front of a panel of people who can ask you questions. Can you quote certain scriptures? Can you do certain things? Right? Do we know as an adult female, you know these things? As an adult male, you know these things. Okay, cool. We're going to celebrate it in front of everybody as a public declaration that this person is in fact an adult by our standard, by our community. After we finish that, what happens next? Ages 16 to 18, we're going to teach you what it is to be a husband and what to be a wife. We're not finished yet. See, a lot of y'all think that adulthood is it and haven't even been trained in what adulthood really is. But a lot of us go into adulthood and be like, okay, cool. Well, I got to college, and once I finish with college, I'm done. No. Like, adulthood still ain't the end, because now we got to make sure that you as an adult, you don't know what it is to be a husband or wife. We've been giving you little hints and you've seen certain things, but now we'll be very specific. For these next 3 years, you ain't learning nothing but husband. You ain't learning nothing but wife. Right? But then we can't stop there. Ages 19 to 21, you ain't learning nothing for the next 3 years. We ain't stopping. You got to learn how to be a father or a mother. What is a father? What is a mother? Because just because you're a husband or a wife doesn't mean that you're going to be a father or a mother. Come on, somebody. There's a lot of people who had a lot of husbands and wives in their presence raised them, right? But they didn't learn what it was to be a husband or a wife. Why? Because the father has to do some things to show you what it is to be a husband, and the mother has to do some things. So you can have a great husband-wife combination that doesn't take care of their children very well, but they'll stay together for 80 years, but their children all over the place. Y'all say this all the time. You know about PKs, preachers' kids. Preachers' kids. Why? Because the preacher's kids, the husband and wife, right? The pastor and the first lady, they're great at being pastor and first lady. But you see their children, you like, oh wow, y'all can't tell me about how to raise my children. I'll listen to you talk about the word, but I ain't gonna listen to you about how to raise children. Why? Because you were a husband and a wife. You were great for each other as husband and wife, but mother and father, that's another dimension. You got to train that too. Then after that, what happens with the female? She can go on her own, but usually what happens with her is she stays with the family. Why? Because her father is her protector, and her father is there for her until she gets her husband. She'll actually stay with her father, right, under her father's care, and the father makes sure that he's taking care of her, but he can't become her husband, but she's protected by her real husband, Yahweh, and the father makes sure he takes care of her, so she can have her business, she can do whatever, but she usually stays there. Money stays in the family, protection stays there, all those things, right? For the male, we would give him his inheritance. We would say, okay, you've learned how to be we've taught you what it is to be a boy, not be a mama's boy, You learn through your father. You got your education. You become an adult male. We train you what it is to be a husband. So you are a husband. We stamped approval on that. We stamped approval as you as a father. Go out there and here's your inheritance. Go do what you do. Right? The little girl will get her inheritance, a little bit of it, but she's going to be staying at home, so she doesn't need as much. But if we give him the inheritance, we say, okay, heavy is the head, the word, the crown. You need to go out there, develop these things, show you can do these things. And when you find a wife, now come back and tell us about it. Right? And then he goes out there, he does his thing, he's in his work. He will find his wife in his work. Wives should be looking for their husbands in their work. We say this stuff all the time. So wives, when he says he finds you as a wife, you should be asking questions or being looking to see what is his work. If he says he does this and that or whatever, why have I never seen him in what he says he does? Come on, somebody, right? Because we aren't trained on this stuff. So you get in all these relationships, and then you're like, hey, how you doing, Kayla? You get in all these relationships, and he's like, how did I see that? How did I know he was doing this? How did he hide that from me? Because you never asked him about his work. You never looked and studied to see what his work was. He said, he said he a diamond salesman, but he always wearing cubic zirconia. Right? You know what I'm saying? He said that he was a preacher, but he ain't got no platform that he preaches. He said that he believed in the Most High, but he can't quote a scripture, and you only have one Bible study. He gives you Bible study, but he ain't never shown interest in what, and making sure that he knows what you do, because he's supposed to lift you up. Right? Yeah, he wasn't working. You can't right? Like, yeah, if he ain't in his work, you can't multiply, but he ain't working there. That's why one of the worst things that we always get from the sisters, right? Hey, baby, what you thinking? And we're just like, nothing. And what she's coming to you and saying in her language, now she needs to sometimes be a little better in her language, but what she's really asking and saying is, and kind of commanding and demanding, if we be honest, she's saying, give me direction. But when you say nothing, she say, oh, this fool ain't got no work. Well, what am I here to do? Like, we ain't gonna go nowhere. And you don't realize when she's saying we ain't gonna go nowhere, you think, oh, she want money, this and that. No, she needs something to multiply. But you ain't got no work. So what is she gonna multiply? Or bishop, if he drinks like a fish, etc. Right? You ain't got no work. But she here to multiply. She said, baby, what you thinking? And you ain't got nothing. But ladies, let's be honest. Or sisters, I'm sorry. Sisters, let's be honest. Queens, let's be honest. Like, y'all got to stop acting like y'all are always out here trying to, you go with these brothers, you go out with them, you date them for 7-8 years, and they ain't showing no work, and they ain't showing that they're going to lift you up. They ain't showing they're going to put a ring on your finger. And then finally they kind of say, okay, maybe we'll get married and start calling you wifey. They say, I love you for one time, and don't say it. And y'all let that stuff roll. Right? So if you ain't told him that you need work from him, then don't be upset when there ain't nothing multiplying. He's not going to multiply by himself. I know y'all think that that's what happened. Men don't multiply by ourselves. Men are in work, and we can do work that does so well that it causes fruit and to multiply and replenish and subdue. But man, I'm telling you, a man that's married, a husband that's married to a wife, I promise you, when you find a wife, not a woman, a wife, not a woman with a girl's mind, a wife, not somebody who plays wife on television, right? But a wife. When you never see multiplication when a wife is in wife mode. Sometimes you get wives and they're not always in wife mode. But when a wife is in wife mode, you never see multiplication in your life like that. You never see it, right? And the husband, when he's in his work, you've never had the ability to multiply like that. I'm not saying a woman on her own can't multiply, because you're married to your husband, so you're still a wife. But I'm trying to tell you, like, when you're in wife mode, or when you got a husband that's really about being a husband, you never see multiplication like that happen, because you've never seen work and multiplication come together. If you want great manifestation, put work plus multiplication equals great manifestation. A lot of people are okay with manifestation. Work plus multiplication equals great manifestation. Right? And so in all these different things that are going on, this is what you're dealing with. Right? That's why we talk so much about husbands and wives. How many people are raised under that? Anything close to that? And then it even tells you, once you find your wife, guess what you're supposed to do? She's supposed to go and prepare herself for you. Right? That's Matthew chapter 25. She's going to put oil in her lamp, and she's going to get herself ready. She's actually going to go to something called the Wailing Wall, and she's going to wail at the fact that she's going to realize to self. So you actually wail. You're dying to self. right? You're sacrificing yourself. That's actually based on a real thing in the Bible that people don't even know about, where there was a general who asked the Most High to be able to give him victory, right? And he said he shouldn't have done it, but he was like, hey, I'll offer up my the first person that I see out of my house, I'll offer them up as a sacrifice, if you give me this victory, right? Yahweh gives him the victory. And Yahweh didn't even require, when you read it, he didn't require this at all, but the man had decided he had to be a man of his word. So he came back. The first thing that came out of his house was his daughter. A lot of people don't know this. First person that came out was his daughter. He wailed, he screamed, he cried. She was trying to figure out what was going on. He had to tell her, like, I made this commitment to the Most High. So decided, just like what happened with Isaac, and she wailed, she cried about the fact that she was not going to be able to basically see anything. She was chaste, she was a virgin, she never even had a chance to be married. So she went out, she wailed, and she cried. She came back, and basically the father had her sacrificed because of what he spoke that didn't even need to be spoken, but what he made a covenant, and he felt he couldn't back down or even ask, anything else. He just went through what he said, right? So women in our culture would continue to go to the Wailing Wall because you were dying off to what you used to be. However, there was praise that happened because you were going to be able, like this daughter of Zion, you were going to be able to actually become one with somebody else, right? So then after that, right, the husband, meanwhile, he was supposed to go, once he found his wife, he was going to leave his lands and everything that he was already building for himself and his family to come. And he was going to go back to his father's land, right? To keep money in the house, to keep family in the house, to keep generational wealth, to make sure the family was going to keep providing for each other. And he would go back to his father's house and build what's called a mansion. You guys know about that from John chapter 15. A mansion is not a big house. A mansion is an add-on to a house. In my father's house, there's many mansions. What that comes from is the son would have to go back to his father's house and his father's land, and he would start to build an attachment, right? And he would start to build an attachment onto those things. Now, as he began to build an attachment onto those things, what would happen, what would take place would be very simple. As he built the attachment, the father would be looking over it. Oh, okay, that kitchen area is nice, but you're gonna need to make sure you have something for my powder room. Hey, have you made sure that she's gonna need to get this? Have you made sure she's gonna need to get that? Have you made sure, he's telling her, hey, as she's preparing herself for you, you need to be preparing yourself for her, right? And it's a father speaking to the son. So he's like, hey, I've already done this, right? I had a father tell me how to build this, and I've lived this long enough that I can typically, until the father says things are built up, the son has to keep building mansions. Right? That's part of marriage. Now, how many people came together and instead of spending 10,000, 50,000, 100,000 on just the wedding, plus making sure now that you got to, save money because you got to go on your honeymoon and all this, but never once thought to yourself, instead of doing all that, why didn't we just make sure that we bought some land? Why didn't we just make sure we built the house? Why didn't we make sure our children are going to have what they need? You know why? Because you're not in culture. You're not dealing with natural law. Pedrovsky, I'm not sure what you're talking about as far as flesh. I've talked about flesh already today, that we're focusing on the man before we focus on the human, so as you can't be a humus man or a human. Sounds like you might be just coming into the conversation. You've been talking about Saturn and other different things like that. Well, I'm talking about the flesh needs to happen because I just described stuff that happens in the spirit and the flesh. Right. We do have these things recorded though, so you can go to the YouTube channel and look at what I was talking about to catch up. Right. So Chelsea Donnie. So there's a lot of stuff that's in there. It's a lot of stuff, and we just don't know about our culture. When you don't know about culture, you can't really do those things. You said you told your son you would gift money for land, but they can cover a big wedding. Yeah, exactly. And by the way, in our culture, you don't have the big wedding. You said the biggest sin of all eyes. Yeah, you're gonna have to describe that. You're going somewhere else that's not culturally where we are. I don't mind it, but you got to at least, you're saying things. I guess your assumption is that I'm supposed to know whatever your belief system is. I guess I don't know what's going on. I'm trying to do it, but you're just making kind of statements without helping me out. Said Noah and her sisters petitioned Moses for their inheritance. Evidence Yahweh holds woman in his heart. I mean, of course. Well, once again, culturally speaking, everything I said as male and female, making sure that they're there. I mean, you can talk about Deborah, you can talk about, the Cush, a whole bunch of Cushite women, including Moses' wife, Sapphira, who literally is the one who gave circumcision to her husband. Although we would think of like circumcision even given only by men. Deborah was a judge that was so great that men wouldn't go into battle unless she showed up. You can talk about uh, um, Second John. Trying to remember the name of the woman, but the name of the woman who was the pastor, right? Who was talking about in the, so there's a lot of different things that happen with our women, but once again, if you listen to somebody else's culture, it's going to be something that's different. You said, are we not in culture because we are just becoming awake? We're not in culture because it was something that we gave up, and also we also scattered and then kind of gave into other people's stuff. But we don't know certain things. There's people that are around the world that have known this for the longest. Don't forget even simple things like Israel. Prime Minister of Egypt at the time in 1940s, when Israel wanted to be known as this modern Israel, this new version of whatever they want Israel to be, recognize their sovereignty. Egypt said that we're not going to do it, and the prime minister was not even Kemetic. He was somebody that was over Kemetic people, right, and was taking of their culture or killing it off somewhat. But he even knew enough to say, like, I'm not going to bow down to y'all as a sovereign nation. They said, why not? He said, well, when you left, you were white. I'm sorry. He said, when you left, you were black. When you came back, now you're white. Some like a lot of these things have been known that I'm saying now. There are things that you can read outside of the Bible, outside of 66 books, 80 books, 200 books, whatever you declaring. There's a lot of stuff that's there, but just because people know it or are aware of it, rather, people don't know it. To know it means to be intimate with. So now what's happening is people are deciding to live it no matter what. Right now, people are starting to say, we'll live what the word says, even if it makes us look bad, even if people try to say it's a cult. Cult just means a culture, by the way. So everybody's in a cult. But even if you try to dismiss me, if you try to kill me with your tongue, whatever the case might be, I'm not going anywhere. I'm going to live this. My family's going to live this. And as for me and my house, we shall serve Adon. Right? Oh, Judith is another person. I barely mentioned Judith, if I'll be honest. I need to be better at mentioning Judith. We just talked about Rahab recently. We talked about Esther recently. Yeah, like there's a lot of women, and those are just a few. Don't forget the Proverbs 31 woman. We often think of that as just Solomon, but Solomon, when he writes that, he's actually writing a story about the Proverbs 31 woman. We only start at verse 10, but you got to go back. Right? I'm sorry, I just lost signal. So we only think that Proverbs 31 verse 10 and then talk about the woman, right? But we forget that that's more, righteous and more worthy and more valuable than rubies. Before you do that at verse 10, you got to go back to verse 1. And verse 1 shows you that Solomon got a story from his father David, and David is telling him about how a queen, a woman, is talking to her son, who's now just become king. So his father must have just passed away. His mother, who's the queen, is trying to tell him that, hey, you're going to need to get yourself in order, and you're going to need to find yourself a wife, right? Read verses 1 through 9. And she's telling him, find yourself a wife, and this wife needs to be acceptable. She's going to help you with this. And you as a man, you're going to need somebody to help you to be better in this area, that area. And then she gets to verse and starts saying what a wife is, right? What this virtuous woman is. When she gets to the virtuous woman, she's describing a wife. Now, a lot of people don't even know virtus. What does virtue or virtus mean? Virtus or virtue literally means how you represent. So his mama was saying, if you're going to be somebody who's going to reach something in your work, then you got to have a helpmeet that's going to help you represent. And that's what you're reading in Proverbs 31, verse 10 on down. But a lot of people don't even know that. Exactly. Queen laying down law has been established because Proverbs chapter 1, verse 8. So you got to know Proverbs 1:8 before you start talking about Proverbs chapter 31. But Proverbs chapter 1, verse 8 tells us what? It tells us that fathers give instruction, right? And mothers lay down the law. So instruction had been given, even though the father, her husband, is dead. The son needs to be able to get something from the father. He's already probably been given instruction. Here comes his mother now giving the law, the parameters, saying this is how the instruction of your father is going to continue to go from generation to generation to generation to generation. Right? You see what I'm saying? Like this stuff is being spoken. So this is a story that David is given, saying that, hey, there's a famous queen in our culture and this is what you must use as a king. So Solomon is saying that my dad told me what a famous woman in our culture has said. So it's a message from father to son, but the masculine father is still using the feminine principles that were his law laid down so that he can help out and give direction through the law that was given. And now here's Solomon doing the reverse, saying, I'm going to give y'all direction by showing you the law that a woman helped to be able to put in place. That's our principle that everybody's talking about but doesn't know it. We're aware of it, but we don't know it. Culture informs beliefs, beliefs inform emotions, emotions inform feelings, and feelings inform mood, mood informs your effort and energy informs your habits. In Genesis chapter 1, verse 1, and all that was aimed towards saw everything that he had made. You were the end of everything. Everything, therefore, that he was making was so that you would be created and that you would have all this dominion and all the stuff you're supposed to have in your perfect, your mature state. And he said, and Elohim saw everything that he had made and ought towards what? Behold, pay attention. It was very constitutional. It was very much like him. It ought, and that was what? Towards the evening, the dark places that we were in, the confusion, towards what? The rising, the enlightenment was what? The sixth period of time, Yam Vav. And what does Vav mean again? Vav means finished. Vav also means a tent nail that nails the tent or the house or the family together. You are the nail that nails the family together. Why did Yahshua have to come in human form? Because he had to come in human form because only a human being could nail the family in position. And he had to come through a specific family. That's why he's the bit, the son who comes out the right family. All these things we're talking about, they go together, right? But you have to know the culture to be able to even get that. It's difficult for many to get, right? It's difficult for many to get, but that's what had to happen. So tomorrow we'll go into Genesis chapter 2, right? Before Minister Tamara comes up and gives us a mighty word at 10 o'clock, right? But that's why it's important. You have to have the culture. We're having conversation without culture. We're having conversation without culture. It's impossible that you're going to get this, and there's no culture involved. We keep trying to do this, and people are going past culture. You're skipping over culture. You can't skip past culture. This ain't skip to my loo. You can't skip past culture. You got to do what culture says. You got to present culture. All right, Sister Stacy, thank you. Same to you. You have to present culture. You might not want to, but you should, or else you're going to miss everything. Remember, Yahshua HaMashiach, he comes to the earth, and he's here. Right? He comes to the earth, and he's here. Yeah, Minister Tam is going to give the word for the Shabbat Shalom podcast, or the Kofi for the podcast for Shabbat Shalom service at 10 a.m. Right? Not today, but tomorrow, right, on Shabbat. You know? Yeah, that could be put on a shirt. You can't skip. You can't. We try to skip past culture. How you going to keep skipping past culture? You got a problem. You keep skipping past culture. Yahshua was here, and people who were supposed to be the best Israelites, Israel of Israel, Benjamin of Benjamin, all these terms that you hear people saying, but they weren't of Israel. Not all Israel is of Israel, because the people that were on top, there were people that were underneath who were getting saved and healed, and the sinners were getting saved and healed, and all these different things. And here you are, missing completely who you're supposed to be, and missing Yahshua. And therefore, you have leaders who are the reason why Yahshua had to die. Now, really, it's because of sin, but at the end of the day, leaders couldn't be like, yo, this is Yahshua. This is the one that we're talking about. John the Baptist saw it. He got killed, though. He saw the master. What was his reward? He got killed. Of course, they're going to kill your reputation. Of course, they're going to say that you're crazy. Of course, they're going to say you're just some non-believer. Of course, they're going to say you have no clue what you're talking about. Of course, they're going to say those things about you. They're supposed to. Don't sweat that. They're supposed to talk mad craziness about you. Don't be mad at that. Rejoice and be exceeding glad. They did the same thing to the prophets. They did the same thing to the Messiah. They did the same thing. They do the same thing to Yahweh. Why am I tripping off of what somebody would say about me when especially when I've gone through the process of doing what the Bible says? Ezekiel chapter 37, verse 14. We put that on Patreon, a couple of days ago. Like, hey, we're supposed to be the people. Revelation chapter 7 talks about us being sealed. We're supposed to be sealed. In order to be sealed, that means that we have to come back to ourselves, and we're supposed to reestablish. I'm not worried about what somebody did, where they're killing off our people and trying to tell you by killing off our people, it's because they're supposed to be the chosen people. What does that make sense? If we the chosen people, how you get to kill us off and then tell us that it's because you're chosen? Get out of my face with that. Right? We are supposed to put this together. We're supposed to put our language together. We are supposed to be the ones to say, this is what Yah says. We're supposed to be the ones to be sealed. That's what it says. You got to be sealed, and then everybody can be grafted in. I didn't write it. Now, and it's weird that you're okay with somebody who's not me trying to seal themselves by destruction of the earth and everybody in it, right? But then when we say we want to be sealed so that everybody can get what they're supposed to be, you look at us as a cult. Yeah, miss me with that, for real. I'm done with that. I'm done with entertaining that. If you won't call out, if you'll wear the Star of Malak, which is the family, which has become the family crest of the Rothschild family, and you'll put it on a blue and white flag to be able to say that somebody should be able to kill off people in the name of the one who said that Malak is underneath him, you do what you do. Right? As for me and my house, the word house doubles for family. As for me and my family, anybody who wants to be part of this mission to bring heaven to earth, like, you're my family. Right? Israel must be sealed, but anybody can be grabbed in if you about the same mission. It's not about submission. Don't submit to a man. Don't submit to me just because. Submit to a mission. If the mission is something that's about you bringing heaven to earth, let's get it. Let's be done with all this foolishness. And stop saying, how are we going to do it? You just talk a great game. We have things in place. We've been asking for people to help. We got stuff online. We got stuff you can do right now. Things you can give to right now. Things you can be a part of fundraising right now. Like, at this point, it's about, do we have it? Are we righteous? Are we making, like, it's are we going to do it? And so I've gotten to a place where, look, I'm comfortable in the season, right? I told everybody when we started last year, I said, hey, I can't do this by myself anymore. So I'm gonna put stuff out. I'm resigned, and I'm okay with, and I'm excited about, and I'm healthy enough now to be able to say that all I can do is put out tools and be a vessel. And if people want to do what the Most High says, come on. Like, this is your environment too. I'm over the environment, but it's not my environment. Come on in and be a leader. Come on in and help. Come on in and guide. Come on in and come up with ideas. Right? There's thousands of things literally that we're ready to do at the moment's notice if somebody would just say, I'll do it. So at this point, it just gets to be a place where I'm like, I realize money corrupts. Money, I don't know. The love of money corrupts. I've never seen a scripture that says that money corrupts. If you're a corrupted individual, you'll corrupt anything you touch. You can corrupt fruit. That's why people genetically modify it. I'm not scared of money because money's not even real. Money gets you real things, but money's not even real. Money's a promissory note at best, and there's not even any gold or silver to back money up. So I'm not worried about that. I'm not scared of money. Right? I'd be scared of money if I was scared that I didn't have my stuff together. I'd be scared if these people who are a part of the family, they didn't have their stuff together. But since I see righteousness in them, we ain't scared of no money. Money is going to just give us what we need. We don't care about money. Right? Money don't even have no gold or silver to back it up. If you're chasing money like that, then that means you corrupted enough to think that something that's fake is something that, is going to affect the real. Right? But the actions towards money, if your action, everything, if you ahaba money, that's really what it comes to. We don't know what words mean. If you ahaba mammon, right? That's really what it is, to ahaba, or to love, with the love of the Father, the Son, the Holy Spirit towards money. Then that's what it says is the root of all evil. But I'm not chasing after money. Money chases after us. We're an ATM machine. People come to the ATM to either get from what you have, or they come to the ATM to fill it up so that others can get what you have. I'm cool with being the ATM machine because the ATM machine has more money than the average person at all times. I'd just rather be the ATM machine. Let it flow in, let it flow out, let it flow in, let it flow out. I'm just a conduit. Anyways, though, We're about to lose power. Thank you so much. Appreciate it. We will be back on tonight, 8 o'clock p.m. Eastern New York time on Kofi_42, prayerfully on YouTube as well. Thank you guys so much. You can hear that we're getting a little bit more energy back now. So been able to sleep a little bit. Probably still going to try and sleep a little bit today. A lot of you guys should be getting some emails. Ministerial training should be putting the email form soon. We have been trying to get better at, or we have been posting stuff on Patreon. Working on putting together some trip stuff so you guys can see different things or whatever. We appreciate you guys. We're excited and we're grateful. We're thankful to be in front of you all again. We look forward to talking to you guys very soon. Yeah, I think that's all I have. Thank you guys so much. Please check out my wife, the Honorable Alma. We're looking at seeing you guys very soon. Talking to you very soon. We will have an SOC meeting tomorrow. Minister Tamara will give a word tomorrow. Thank you guys who did Thursday Rising Prayer yesterday without me. Like I said, I needed to lay down, so I probably would have just been asleep for the 30-45 minutes I slept yesterday. I probably would have just been asleep during it anyways. So but thankful and grateful. Appreciate you guys. Take care of yourselves. We honor you guys. We'll be back on. We're on every day on this channel on TikTok at 8 a.m. Eastern New York time. We're on every weeknight on TikTok, Kofi_42. And at 8 o'clock p.m. Eastern New York time. The only time we're not falling into one of those things is on Wednesday. Wednesday is my day off, even though we do have alternatives for you to be able to get a word still. So thank you all. We appreciate you. Please check out my wife, the Honorable Alma, at Bloom and Flourish, not A&D, the letter N, Bloom and Flourish. She's a healer, herbalist, chemist, and biologist by degree. And she has many different tinctures and medicines to help you out. Tincture of the month is still lower my cholesterol. So feel free to go ahead and get in touch with her. If you want to, you can do so by getting in touch with us. If you're on YouTube, we got our information in the description, including the link tree as well. We have our link tree on TikTok on Kofi_42 and Kofi_43. Thank you so much. Thank you, Patreon fam. Thank you, YLP83 fam. Thank you, those who are new, those who have been with us, etc. You agree, you disagree. We appreciate you, and our prayers that you continue to do great and marvelous and majestic things as you continue to move on. So thanks for being on. We look forward to talking to you guys later. I will hopefully reach out to some of you, mostly via email, because I probably still need to get some sleep. But I'll try to reach out to some of you with some assignments or some different things or some different answers to questions that you guys might have. And we'll be having more information on classes coming up very soon. We honor you guys, though. Thank you so much. As always, it's been Pastor Kofi, pastor of Servant to Christ, where we are always changing lives one mind at a time by being a voice to the voiceless and speaking the unspoken, until I have the great privilege, opportunity, and responsibility of being in front of you all again. We want you to remember, as always, that you are loved, you are necessary, you are majestic, you are fearfully and wonderfully made, and you, Yashville, which is all of us who are working together, will be the reason why people who are in this system no longer have to be of it. Shalom, Kedah, Yashville, Guam. We'll talk to you soon. Peace.